Hello, everyone. Just wanted to jump on before we get started properly with Spotlight tonight, just to talk some news in our little community that I imagine a lot of the people watching this or listening to this have heard already or have seen over the last couple of days. But just wanted to say how sorry we are to hear that our friend Dylan Shah has passed away over the last couple of days. If you were on our Discord, if you were in our Patreon chats, or if you were at any British wrestling show, really, over the last few years, you'd know Dylan as that happy, lovely, smiley bloke who'd just come over to chatting to you. I felt like I've seen him everywhere around the country. Matty was just with him, at WrestleMania. Met him for the first time, was chatting to him, and obviously, we had him on shows at times as well. JP, a couple of Ask Grapples, and obviously we had a King of the Mountain show with him as well, and just absolutely devastating news to hear, and hearts with everybody who was close with him, and just a big pillar of our little community and our little corner of the internet, and just a really, really, really sad thing.
Oh, incredibly sad. I won't lie. I said to you before we got started, it's completely not me for six. And I feel like it complete shock. I'm like, for his family and his close friends, I am so sorry. He was lovely. And I know that may seem like, we're, just putting platitudes, but honestly, he was a genuinely lovely bloke. He was a guy who, if you went to a load of Brit Rest shows, you saw him up and down the country. If you didn't know people and you'd see him, he'd be like, he's a friendly face you'd chat to. And we would see him like at all venues, like whether it be sort of the 229, or if you were going to like the Ritz in Manchester, if you were going to a big WWE show, you say Matty met him at WrestleMania. Really, really lovely bloke. Quite often we'd have a good chat about football as well. He liked Fulham and Watford. They were like the couple of the sides that he would follow. And he absolutely loved wrestling, and he would always sort of make the big hikes over to the US and go over there. And it's incredibly, incredibly tragic. And it's like I say, it's for a lot of us in our small corner of the world, it really is like knocked us for six. And
it really has.
All we can do is pass on our condolences and our best wishes to close friends and family.
Yeah, and it's just a wild thing. Obviously, I've kind of knocked me for six the morning when I found out the news, and I was just kind of, I ended up throwing on. We had him on, a King of the Mountain show where we did, XWF, and we were during the pandemic, and we were chatting about like, meeting up again at shows and seeing each other there, and him being one of those, faces that you'd know but wouldn't know until eventually we did break the ice, and we're chatting to him at shows. People in the Discord saying they were introduced to him through us and through our little thing, and obviously very, very active on our Discord and in the live chats and stuff as well. It's just it really has knocked me for six. It really, you just think about like the little things, really. It's like just the little interactions you have with people, and the back and forth you have with people over like liking each other's photos on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, and sending each other little comments, and just people like that are just in your life and in our community that we're so lucky to have. And it's awful. It really is. You've really got to kind of appreciate those little moments, and like I say, the big ones. Like I say, I'm having them on the shows and the great chats we have with them.
Exactly. Yeah, like you say, and I think if there's a like almost like a trying to take positives from any of this, is the fact that like he went out and he did the things he loved doing, and like him going out to WrestleMania, and like he loved wrestling, and he was just like, no, I'm going to go to these shows. And anyone who met him could always attest just how friendly he was. I always think of us stood back of like, say, the York Hall, and we'd be stood there at the back, and it'd hit the intermission, and then we'd meet up with a few people, and we'd be stood at the back, and we'd be having a chat. And Dylan would always be there, and you'd always have a nice chat with him. He'd always be like a friendly face. He'd always have a smile on his face, like you've said. He was just like a really happy guy who was always ultra friendly, and like I say, absolutely loved his wrestling, and went and embraced it, and had a fantastic time out in Mania from what we saw of his photos and the things that he was saying that he was up to there as well. And I know, for example, one of the highlights, it wasn't this Mania week, it was the Mania week before. Do you remember the House of Glory show that was in a church?
Oh yeah, we were watching that one live. Yeah.
And he was sat there with Mark Doyle, who I've chatted to in there as I was chatting to this week as well, and he was just sat there alongside him. And I just remember watching this show, and it was just like, Dylan and Mark, and I was sat there having just like kind of like great crack as well. And he was always like just a really like friendly,
ever present. Felt like he was at everything. It really did, like North, South, America, wherever. And obviously, you know, people have been using our Discord to kind of share stories of him with him being part of our community, and please continue to do that. You know, obviously Ewan was very close with him, and he was the one who had to break the sad news on the Discord. But you know, seeing people like Ben, Britt Reserway Days, you know, post little stories and tributes to him. Obviously, the Ogdens were very close, and seeing his close friends like Andrew Carberry on Twitter and people like that just share stories. Please continue to do it, and if we can be there for anybody, please, I suppose, be there for each other. It's a really tough time. It's hard to know what to do. His family have obviously put out a statement via Andrew Carberry on Twitter, which I'll share. And they have, you know, obviously they want their privacy at this time, and I know everyone's gonna respect that. But they have also said, you know, if anybody's got, you know, any kind words, any tributes they'd like to share, to please do so. And they provided an email address for those on the audio. It's dills.forever, dills dilz.forever82 @gmail.com. If you want to pass on any condolences to the family, please do. But as they've said there, you know, he's just a truly amazing person, treated everyone the same, a unique person, and they're going to miss him and his presence wherever he may be. Just, I'm sure they'll appreciate any kind words that you can give, and please continue to use our spaces to talk about them. Love to see it.
Yeah, it is. I think that's one of the things about it is how it brings like communities like ours together closer, and people being able to kind of share stories, photos, like happy times and memories for him as well. So I mean, like, rest in peace, mate. You absolute star.
That's it. And obviously I'll probably, you know, in a few days or so, I'll put that podcast up. We had a great chat with him up Fulham and all kinds, you know. He was in a very unique position being a Fulham supporter. He was also a wrestling fan in those early days of AEW. We had a lot of good chats about it with stuff like that. Yeah. It's a while, like you know, time capsule, that conversation, especially obviously it's the first 20 minutes of that show. But yeah, we'll put that out on the free feed for everybody who wants to check it out and remember him. But just wants to say that first, and obviously thoughts with everybody who's close with him and his family as well.
Rest in peace, mate.
Once there was a mountain called Peak 15. Nothing was known about it. But in 1852, the surveyors found it was the highest in the world, and they named it Everest. Drawn to Everest, it was an unknown quantity. Something entirely beyond them.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight, recorded here live on Grapple Patreon. I'm Benno.
And I'm JP.
And obviously that was a very tough intro to talk about. Wanted to obviously talk about Dylan as much as we could at the top of the show here, but we are here for Spotlight, and hopefully for everybody out there who's watching along us for a bit of an escape as well, and to talk some wrestling, to talk some of the good stuff that I'm sure Dylan would have very much enjoyed. But yeah, outside of that, how are things, JP? How's it going this Tuesday night?
It's blisteringly hot here. I don't know how it is there, because from what I've seen of some of the stuff you've put up there, you've been in the middle of like some, to say torrential rain is probably an understatement of what's been going on in Thailand. It's been, I'm burnt, like, and I have to say I'll be feeling the pinch of this later on tonight when I'm sat on the sofa and my neck is absolutely scorching because, like the fool that I am, I forgot to put some suntan lotion on.
I've kind of stopped doing that here now. I've gotten too brave. I've turned into one of those Westerners who's just like, there's clouds. It can't get me. It's fine. I'm more interested in putting the mosquito cream on than I am the sun cream at this point. It's going to catch me. I'm going to be on here. I'm actually looking a bit pink already. Maybe that's the lighting in here. As the eagle-eyed people will notice that I've moved to a different part of my room here in Bangkok, just to appease the neighbours. Don't want any more noise complaints as I argue with Matty. But obviously the horrible news aside, and great to see the tribute still coming through in the chat there to a great man in Dylan. My abiding another memory of the weekend, which feels like it was a long time ago now. You meeting Gaza, Matty meeting Pete Doherty. It's been a hell of a weekend.
Oh God, yeah. Still a crazy weekend with that, and I know Matty was very much hold my beer when it came to me meeting Gaza, and there's him and Pete Doherty. Well, Matty's wearing
Pete Doherty,
a suit.
I think he said. He kept pronouncing it weird. Steph was pointing that out to me today when she was listening back. She wasn't having that.
Because I should say this, because I went to uni with his sister. There's a whole thing about this there. Amy Jo, who is the way him and Carl Barrett got introduced. This is far too long a story to kind of get into. They were in my halls.
Fine, I'm in the mood to be able to tell you.
Oh, okay. So in my halls, she was on the same floor along with a mate of mine, Chris, who I ended up house sharing with for a bit, post uni, and she would come round loads. But Pete Doherty met Carl Barrett because he was also on the floor. He had a bit of a reputation of borrowing stuff and not giving it back. He borrowed my copy of Blackadder Goes Forth, which he actually did give back. So I thought, fair play to him. He just did it while I was asleep on my bed. It was like my door opened. He went, "Here you go, mate," and just dropped it on the table. I was like, "Oh, okay." He didn't finish his uni course, but it worked out all right for Carl in the end. And then before you knew it, they were, I was at Brunel, Andy, in there. Yeah, I was at Brunel at that point in time. And then he was they met. There was another Pete who Carl used to knock around with. He was a proper thieving bastard. He was. And they met. I met him a couple of times. All right, and I'm going to throw this out there. This whole Chaz and Dave loving they had with him, that was down to me. I used to go to parties and they put on some music, and I put on Rabbit by Chaz and Dave. And then eventually people would get cross and want it turned off. But he kind of liked it. And I was like, and I was like, I shouldn't like them really. They're Spurs fans. Pete Doherty, big QPR fan. He used to write for the fanzine and stuff in there as well. Fucking hell, were you around Brunel?
Andy,
we need to meet him.
He was in Brunel.
This is like meeting Mark Doyle and he's going, we went to the same school. And I was like, fuck off. We did. We did.
Are you the new Pete Best? Could you have been in the Libertines? Because it could have been you, Andy, instead. Who could have got it going, With a different take on the sound, I think it would have quite sound so Camden if you were involved.
It would have sounded shit because I can't play an instrument to save my fucking life, and I can't sing. What I could have done is the other extracurricular stuff he was doing on the side. I probably could have done that for been a fucking world champion in it for it as well. But that was how they met. They met through her, and there was a good few of us around in there as well. I think she lives in Madrid. We're still friends on Facebook and stuff. And she's like a musician herself, and in and around Madrid, called Amy Jo and the Spangles, because it comes up on my feed occasionally on there as well as one of the blokes
public service broadcast on there. That's who it was. Yeah, you were right.
That's a banging song. That, by the way, I've never heard that before.
It's the outro as well. You're all good.
Oh, it absolutely it's really lovely. In there as well. I was a bit more jungle. It would have been a lot more jungle in the Libertines if that had been the case. And I don't think that would have fitted in with that whole Albion aesthetic as much. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I've told Steph a lot of this stuff, and I always assumed she just thought, well, he's bullshitting, which would have been a fair shout. But honestly,
she's like a Libertines historian. She's got the tattoo and all kinds. She's got the war story. She could tell you the other side of that story of many different bars in Camden over the years.
Oh yeah. They were living in a. I remember you speak to a guy, how's your brother, and you go, they're living in a squat, and it's just this musician thing doesn't seem to be working out entirely well for them. It worked out right in the end when he was wandering around Glastonbury with Kate Moss, and he was all over the fucking news. But he was like, well, seems to have worked out fine for him at the moment in there. But he's a bit different these days. I mean, I remember we checked in a while back on here when he'd eaten that giant breakfast in Margate. Do you remember that when he did that? And he couldn't have the tea. He didn't drink tea or coffee, so he had a strawberry yuzu instead. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, he's he's doing all right for himself these days. He seems to be a lot more of a happy camper.
Said to Matty when you see, he looked at Matty, was like, oh, he looked a bit big. I was like, no, if he looks a bit big, that means he's doing well. It means he's off the bad stuff, which is always a good sign. I will say, by the way, completely unrelated, went past my first proper dispensary here in Bangkok the other day. It was literally lit up in neon. It was like the fucking Dr. Dre Chronic album in real life. It was like 420 hemp here. It was like there was no illusion that they sold drugs. I think the literal name of it was Drug Store, which I think is a bit of a mistranslation. But yeah, I think it's real anyway. Unlike the ones in Vegas that I got fooled by. Pretty sure it's legit.
Is that legal out there? Because I'd always been led to believe, Southeast Asia. It's just like you can. I'm sure you can find it anywhere in the world.
Changed the mind. And now it's a bit like, we just kind of let it happen. Like a lot of things, until you don't let it happen. So you got to be careful. Like I was the first show we were on. You were throwing the national anthem on there as Charlie goes. But I didn't pick up on anything yet. Maybe I'll get it. I'll brave enough soon. They wanted your passport for it. It just felt like a trap, JP. I didn't want to.
No. As soon as someone's asking you for your passport, and they're not official customs officials, you're saying no, mate. Can't get involved in that as well. Charlie just heard dispensary and he went, I'm in. Like father, like son. Here we go. Oh, well, there's more horrendous places than that over in Bangkok, which I haven't been in yet, but I do keep on saying, I'm going to go to Koh San Roads where the beach was filmed. I will do that. The next weekend, I'm obviously going to be going to the Setup Pro Wrestling show in Bangkok that is indeed headlined by Zack Sabre Jr. And I don't know anybody else who's on the undercard. I just know Zack Sabre Jr. and that's it. But that's not far from there, so I could end up partying on the streets, who knows, with our Zack. We'll see how previewing it on Friday. Please tell me we are.
100%. Yeah. Next Friday it'll be. Next Friday.
Okay.
It'll be the big show. It'll be the lead on the preview as I try and work out who everybody is, and we'll find out at some point. But yeah, speaking of that, obviously, if you want to hear more on Matty's interactions with Pete Doherty or genuinely JP Metcalf, that's a real thing that happened. It wasn't a tease. The photo was there. It's the weekend show image for this week. Obviously, you blew us all our minds with that story over the weekend as well. Just wander around Oxford. He was just there in his double denim. Yeah. Of course he was.
Doing a show, which Joe was like, well, where's he doing this show? And I went, he didn't say. And in fairness, if he had said, I'm not quite sure I would have picked it up. I would have needed Simon there as a translator for the lad. Bless him. But he's nice enough bloke, and I just wish Gazza all the best. Even if there was a part of me thinking the abuse you caused me in 1991 when he scored that fucking free kick in the semi-final, I just got shit in school because it was one or the other in school back then. You were either Arsenal or Spurs, and it was just fucking dog's abuse, and it was just like, you prick, Gazza. But then everyone loved him because of 1990 and everything else, and to a lesser extent the dentist chair. But
yeah, big stuff that in the papers at the time. See, now that you met Gazza, he's met Pete Doherty, and Axl Rose was in Bangkok last week. Maybe I could have found him. Who knows? I'll see going forward. I don't know. Stallone, he was at Goodison this weekend. Could be doing a world tour. Who knows who we might bump into? But you can get all our audio over on the Patreon. It's basically a running feature now. Which celebrity are the Grapple Lad's going to run into? You get the full story told on the weekend show and on the pre-show from Sunday. On top of that, obviously we were very busy this weekend. Doing the Terry Brunk show, which was a tribute to Sabu. We tried to cover the entirety of Sabu's career, and I think we did by picking some select matches from different areas. We did a bit of ECW, obviously, bit of WCW, WWF in there, quite a little few US indie select matches, mostly various NWA territories. There was a rando match from a casino in Vegas that it turned out I'd actually visited 20 years later. We saw it all this weekend, JP, and it was a hell of a job. I think we did to look at the great man himself and his career, as wide and varied as it got.
Oh yeah, it was absolutely cracking because there was so much stuff that we covered. I mean, we would say about Jeff Jarrett being Forrest Bump, Terry Brunk, he's very much up there with that because he was everywhere at various points. And, there was the Scotty Taylor dark match. That he'd had up on there. And there was a whole sort of dialogue about that. The FMW stuff with the Sheik, which might end up talking about later on in the show when we're talking about dark side of the ring. Going into WCW as well, and and then even sort of like later on in his career when he was he was in ICW. We were working out that Matty was the only one who hadn't seen him live, and then worked out he had seen him as he did
just not on a match, which is typical Matty. It's perfect. It's just basically seeing him in it. Same thing.
Why does he need the match? He's just like, he ran in and he's like, well, we're assuming he did a spot. He wouldn't be the kind of bloke who just come out and just point at someone and look angry about it. It's like, nah, that wasn't his style. But it was a cracking show. So yeah, we've got that up on the up on the Patreon now, and then the next bonus show that we will be doing, I think it's not this Sunday, it's the Sunday afterwards. We're going to be doing the with our first Queen of the Mountains, Thea Hitchcock. We're going to be doing the 4 Horsewomen show as well. So I'm really looking forward to that, because it's intriguing, if only for the bit where we have to rank them in there as well. But it's been a cracking month, this one on here. So we've had, obviously we've done the Sabu tribute show. We've had the May mixtape as well. Called it, like you've said, because it's May and it begins with an M, which is always
it was a good idea in the end. I'll give credit to, not Matty, but the month of May. Well done, month of May.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I like May. 2 bank holidays. What's not to like?
I don't know about holidays, mate. Yeah, about 20 over here. It's like 3 a week.
Fucking awesome. Should be 5 a week. And then it's the weekend and we all go home. We did the 5-to-1 pick and mix that we had out at the start of the month as well. And that was completely wacky. Everything from music videos to the worst ring attire in there as well. Forrest Brunk. There we go.
There you go.
There's Simon says there as well. And then we've got Retro coming out next weekend as well. So that's going to be coming out in there as well. And obviously, to get all the plugs in there, where do you go for all this goodness? You go to patreon.com/grapple or youtube.com/@grapple.
And last note on that, Retro's going to be the show coming out this weekend, but like I say, I'd love to put that show we did out with Dylan for free as well. And I've been talking to Matty behind the scenes today until I did the notes for Spotlight today, is when I found out Saturday night's main event was this Saturday. And I was like, oh, we're doing a double or nothing review, aren't we, for next week's Spotlight? Shit, when we're going to be talking about that, me and Matty might be able to sort something. There might be an extra Spotlight. I don't know what it'll be. An extra review to make sure you join us on the Patreon. I know. We'll talk about it. We'll get there. But
have we not learned our lesson from the first one there as well? Where we were linking to a big show, and what we got was a bit of filler music in there.
Look, I just want the excuse to use the song. I just want to throw Obsession on. Like, literally, it came on the other day on me. Spotify. Does anyone use Spotify for the podcast? Can I just say for a minute? Like, we use Spotify. We host on Spotify. They've been arseholes a little bit about the copyrighted music, as JP said recently, but mostly they've been good. This is probably not a good advertisement for our podcast. I should probably endorse our overlords. But I've been trying to use Spotify for my podcast since I've got to Thailand. It's just shit. Like, they want you to pay for premium to like change what's in your queue. It randomly, like, you finish. So I was listening to the wrestling news to catch up with what happened over the weekend with our friend Michael Sempervivi on. Give him full name there, Michael. And I was going through it. Listen to Friday's one. Listen to Saturday's one. Thought, it'll play me Sunday's one next, won't it? No, just randomly started playing a Star Wars podcast that I don't subscribe to, that it just lapped through in me queue. It just does random fucking stuff like that. It's the fucking worst. I can't believe how bad it is. But like, I'm so tied to it now. I've got all my Patreon's subscriptions linked to it, as well as our show. I feel like I'm just using it wrong. I don't know. What's the podcast app of choice the kids are using? YouTube? Should I get back on that? Maybe that's our big problem. A lot of like the stuff, because I've been listening to a lot of Everton stuff, obviously, with the end of Goodison Toffee TV's my Everton podcast of choice, and some of their stuff's on YouTube, some's on audio, a bit like us again, so I shouldn't complain. So I'm jumping back and forth. Maybe I'm confusing the algorithms. It doesn't know what I've heard. What I haven't. Tangled, good political podcast I've been listening to, JP. I don't know if you've heard that one before.
I haven't, no.
A few good ones today. It's a partisan one where he kind of looks at it like from the crazies of both sides. It's like, Joe Biden's Joe Biden's got cancer. Why is it good? Why is it bad? And he'll give you both sides of it, because that's American politics. That's what they do. But yeah, maybe the algorithm's just confused by the breadth of different things I'm listening to. Maybe that's what it is.
It shouldn't do. I mean, mine is more like when I go into the light songs on Spotify, it's adamant of no, I'm putting this on shuffle. It's like, no, you fucker. Can I listen to the new songs I've just added on to there in the last week or so? Nope, not having that. When it comes to podcasts, it does do the random one, but it does the random one within the podcast. So I listened to one called League of Ireland Central, and it had that. And then it went to one from 3 years ago, and I was like, I was like, what, has he come back? He's like, he's playing in England.
I was listening to a podcast about the last game at Goodison and from Toffee TV, and then it started playing me like a match breakdown of like a game where Sean Dyche was the manager in November. I was like, why would anyone want that? It does the same with the FPL ones. It'll give you like last week's like game week preview. It's like, no. You'd think it'd be more intelligent than that. Pocket Casts, Andy's shouting for podcast addict. Chris Elliott says here in the chat.
Okay.
Maybe I need to broaden my horizons. I used to like Antenna Pod. That got a bit complicated for me. I'll figure it out.
And the thing is, I play for the bloody premium because I've got about 18 different people. And then it gets ruined by Vicky putting on Miss Rachel, which is for like very like for toddlers and stuff. Did you put that on Spotify on there
Toddler
as well?
Podcasts?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Well, not it's like an hour long of like people reading out Hungry Little Caterpillar and then singing around the garden. She doesn't. She's worth, though, at least a good 15 million. That's a fucking good game to get into. Yeah. Like her just singing and stuff. It's odd, but it completely fucks up my algorithm. Like it's gone now all over the place. God help if I get anything kind of random going on in there because of that. So, yeah. And then Charlie, inexplicably, would always end up putting on Taylor Swift. He was like, you might like these eyes. And he's put on that. And I'm just like, look, I don't have levels of hatred for her. I don't want to listen to her in a spare time. It's like, why is this song coming on? Like, what the hell has happened here? It's just like, yeah.
Seems like a nice girl.
Where's Shy FX? Yeah, she a little bit too overexposed for my taste. It's like, why? She doesn't need to be on everything. But there you go.
The NFL podcast with a fella and his brother Steph watches that sometimes. That's all right. It's
the Kelseys.
Okay.
Yeah, that's apparently all right.
Seem like crackling younger lads, they're all right. Liam says here, like his YouTube algorithm after doing work on time. You should see the grapple algorithm after doing a Sabu deep cut. It gets wild. Or after JP logs in and I get like Irish politics and hailing and all kinds like that. And then JP gets all my FPL stuff.
I don't mind that. I'm all right with the FPL stuff, even though the real competition is between me and my last weekend of the season, and there's 1 point separating me and him going into these two games tonight for the family league, which has been going 3 years, and I've been top of that league. And he was here this weekend, and I was like, "Are we allowed to talk about this?"
Should have nicked his phone off him.
Well, we didn't. We didn't tell each other the team. Like that he picked because he was in London for it, and then when he came back he was like, I've had a bad week, and I was like, so have I.
I'll leave it for the pre-show because I know some of the listeners don't like the FPL chat, but very quickly the grapple track leave is coming to a head. After me being on top, I was 15 points ahead at one point. The honky tonk man with my just spoofing all these wins despite having like the worst goal difference in the entire league. It is now coming to the last game of the season. It looks like with me and Jordan. I think Andy Ogden's still in with it. Jeff Ogden, is still in with a shout
four
to tear it up. Is there the fourth one? God, I've not fully
There's
today.
Technically,
me on our league.
I think technically 4 of you could win this.
Could I finish fourth after all this?
Yeah.
I've won a game in like 6, so it's probably not that much of a surprise. Jesus Christ. All right, I'm going to head down this week and making sure it happens. I'm winning the whole thing. Garrett's got relegated. You're coming up. I need to solidify this season.
Oh, yeah, there's no way I'm winning that league down there. Because I have to say, Jordan, FPL animal, that bloke. It's ridiculous. His brother is winning that league there. He's a fucking monster at this stuff as well.
His brother. Probably doesn't exist. Probably just Jordan under another login.
Yeah,
FPL
Tyrone. But like he's also in the real league. He's in the top 2,000. He's like 1,827th or something like that. He's like crazy. Well up there. It's like this bloke is a fucking machine.
It's what I live to be one day.
Yeah.
But anyway, more on that on the next pre-show. But on that note, we should get into some things. Wrestling, I thought I'd shuffle up the order just to cheer us up a little bit today, JP, with the breaking news that's right behind you. I think is the only place to start today, as we have amazing news for the wrestlers in Britain. Well, maybe not Britain, but the rest of Europe this weekend, as GPS on screen there. NXT Europe is back, or never went away, or was always here, or celebrate it. It's coming, as there have been talks internally, according to PW Insider. This via WrestleOps at time of recording is just broken, so I'm guessing it's hidden behind the PW Insider paywall there. But yeah, apparently coming back. A little birdie did say to me that they'd heard something about it being October, so that I'm not reporting it. I'm just saying that sounds to tie in with this report. Sometime towards the end of the year, obviously, and of course ties in with the news we've heard today that WWE have obviously made a couple of big European free agent signings in Argyle Blank, and you're a couple of your boys, Mike DiVecchio being the other one. Fightful Select have added to this story. Story was reported by Cultaholic with Argyle Blank and Mike DiVecchio. Fightful's reporting has Zazoya as a name added to the list again. Again, stop me if there's something all these guys have got in common. None of them are British, but they're all European. And Gallus are out on their arse. It's back, JP. We've learnt no lessons, and is your timeline already full of British and European wrestlers doing somersaults or not? I mean, we're getting the passport queue back, aren't we? Isn't that what Keir Starmer managed to arrange for us this week? Or we get to jump the queue once again, which Selfish will take advantage of. What else do we get out of this agreement? We got NXT Europe. It's a fucking shit deal he put together, isn't it? Really, was that part of the conversation you had with the European Union? We'll only give you your passport queues back if you let us have NXT Europe. Bullshit.
Well, Reform will win in a fucking landslide if he's gone and done that, if that's the case. If he's agreed to that one. There's also another thing that
Reform, or as they're known now, Labour.
There is a whole thing about there is a whole thing about how young people can travel within Europe. Now, I don't know how do you define young people. I look at anyone under the age of 40, frankly, as young at this stage. I even think of myself as young at this point. Whether or not that's going to have an effect about sort of like being able to live and work. I don't think you can bring dependents, but it might make it easy for you to kind of obviously travel around Europe as well. One of the first things I did is I look at what is the twin cities of Enfield, and you'll be finding that Gladbeck in the Ruhr Valley is a twin city with Enfield as well. So I'm assuming that their trampoline warehouse there in Gladbeck is going to be absolutely thinking, all right.
Never had the honor.
No, haven't been to the Raw.
Maybe my dad did in the 80s with that Everton team. Who knows?
Maybe there's a clone of me living out in that neck of the woods as well. So yeah, this story is almost like it's completely inevitable. I think given as soon as the AAA story happened, you just thought, right, yeah, this is definitely now going to be a thing, and it's not a surprise in the slightest. When they did the tryout, you thought of the people who they might be interested in signing, and I just thought because of the size, Mike DiVecchio, he really ticks the boxes of what they want from like a kind of like a big lad in there as everything else. I know that there's very much the Bart Simpson meme of turning around of read the fucking history book, or have a memory that goes back in the last sort of like 6 years. So I should say 7 years or so, when we had NXT UK and how that worked out and how it decimated the scene.
Great for some of the wrestlers, and some being the key word. We should go through the roster. We should figure it out. Who was a success and who was a failure. It was good for them. It wasn't good for the rest of us. Like, I think that's the problem, that you're going to get some of those wrestlers jumping going, I learned so much at an NXT UK. You fans don't understand, what it meant for the scene. It was going to happen anyway. COVID. You hear all those arguments, but it's often from wrestlers who weren't really part of the boom and didn't understand what made the boom what it was. Just not to name any names, but that's some of the people I definitely hear from on that subject matter. But yeah, it's going to happen again, isn't it? It's going to be the same old, but it's going to be like that lower level of talent putting their hands up going, oh, me please next. Like, not just look at any up and down like a lot of these cards. Rev Pro just came back from Spain, and they're doing a great job of they pretty much discovered Zazoya, at least for our part of the world. And if he's being taken away, I think I'm sure they'll be gutted. But them aside, who else is killing it? In the UK, and they focused on the right people. They focused on your Leon Slaters, your Michael Okus of the world. And you look up and down, like just a rando progress card. Like recently, is that the level of talent that was here when we were talking about these types of stories 7 years ago? Of course, it's not. But are we going to learn any of the lessons of the wrestlers from 7 years ago? Of course, we're not. Also, it's just history repeating, isn't it?
It really is. And I think this is the thing about how, because what it did is it took tiers of wrestlers away, and they're tiers that don't exist yet. Like Rev Pro had to work really fucking hard from like the ground up, working with loads and loads of young people to just try and get them up to a particular standard, which they've done really well. And it was the way to do it. WXW aren't back to the force where they were. They haven't got the roster anywhere near the roster that they kind of had in there. Progress don't make me.
They got a lifetime supply of Prime though, JP. That we sound.
Maybe that was the in, was getting all of the Prime in there as well. But what it did, and this is my fear for this, is if it's a Europe-based promotion, how different is it to NXT, like UK, really, outside of they'll run some shows in France, in Spain, and in Germany. NXT UK wasn't selling out over here, like outside of those first couple of shows that were on the network, and they felt like a big deal at the time in terms of like the NXT UK tournament and stuff. Like, you were at it, weren't you, for one of the days?
The first night,
but it's going to take a lot of wrestlers.
Didn't go the second night. Went to Progress. I was loyal.
You were.
That taught me.
Yeah, it really did, didn't it? What they did is because it isn't the case where these wrestlers are so good they need to go to the next level. And where is the next level? Well, it's going to be a US, an international company, or going out to Japan, like getting those kind of bigger bookings. What it did last time is it just swallowed a whole, like 20 odd wrestlers, warehoused them. We didn't see them. They weren't allowed to work on any of these shows. And at the same time, they were involved in
some of the shows, but very select ones.
Some very select ones. They weren't losing. They also kind of went out of their way to almost like they were running opposite like a lot of like other UK indies there as well. And it's not like they were on big money either, but it was more the glory of that. And so it feels to me like they're going to take a load of wrestlers to really work what is Evolve Europe, which sounds fucking horrific. And it'll be a better quality than that. But it won't be like, if you like these guys now, it's not going to be, they're not going to be like how they are in WXW or Rev Pro or even Progress. They're just going to be like kind of like shells of themselves, because when it comes down to the booking, it was completely fucking lackluster. And they lied. They lied and they said they wouldn't be restrictions, as Chris says there in the chat. Bollocks. There were loads of restrictions. There was all of that stuff that went into the mix. They absolutely lied. And this also, and this is one of the things, this feels very much like TKO would love this. They like this with the UFC, don't they?
Yeah.
And UFC did this with making sure they go out to Brazil, going out to Mexico, doing shows in Europe. The thing is with that is the other MMA companies aren't like, it's a proper sport for one, and it's the highest echelons of the sport. So it feels like footballers getting like kind of signed up and everything else. With this, they take people away to basically sort of like warehouse them and do forward rolls till their fucking knees drop. And it just carries on. And there's a few people who should be signed now at this point for like, say, a Rio or a Leon Slater. You think, okay, well, they've proven themselves to a degree, but there's going to be a whole lot of other people who aren't there. And I think we're going to get... Yeah.
Because I think the motivations are different than last time. Because last time it was very clearly, and it was obvious, ITV World of Sport was getting off the ground, and there was a hot European scene that was like, standing on its own 2 feet and getting worldwide attention just on the strength of British promoters and British wrestlers and European promoters and European wrestlers. And WWE wanted a piece of that, / wanted to squash that, / wanted it done in their image. However you want to word it, that's what the motivation was. And, whether they made stars or didn't make stars out of a lot of the people they signed, or whether they're success stories and not success stories. And to be fair, there were some success stories. There were a lot of not as well. That they did achieve at least that aim. They never really got NXT UK going as its own thing, and they can blame the pandemic. They can blame BT Studios being the only place they could run the shows near the end, and all the different excuses. But there was no appetite for it there, because that sanitized WWE version of what was hot at the time wasn't for anyone. There was no real audience for it, so it kind of capitulated on itself, even if it achieved some of those aims. It's a bit different now. It does feel like that. It feels like they're coming in with the idea of, like you say, the TKO idea of having a European fertile ground over in Europe to scout talent and bring people in. And like, it makes sense, doesn't it? You could imagine Nick Khan sat at a business meeting explaining it, and they used to fudge the numbers, didn't they? Where they were like, 98% of the wrestlers on the main roster were developed in NXT. And I was like, that's because it was people like Finn Balor and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and people who were very much developed before you got them. You didn't train them from scratch, but you can tell someone you're training them from scratch. And obviously it was always closer to that in Europe. They were always treated more like trainees at NXT UK, but you can sell that, and that's clear what they're trying to do. Build a warehouse that's going to, in their mind, get talent. Maybe it's the idea that, we are in a situation where there isn't the boom we were in. We don't have the level of talent we did before. Maybe it's partly them thinking, well, we're going to have to create some ourselves. We did the damage so bad that now we've got to, actually make some, because like the pickings are slim. Like one of the worst things that happened last time, it wasn't necessarily, we always said it wasn't like they were literally signing Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay and the out-and-out headliners of the UK scene, or even, bad names now, but, like a Marty Scurll and people like that. It was more they were signing the people who were about to be up next, and it was the people who were, even Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate weren't quite there yet at the time. WWE UK came in for them. Pete Dunne's Progress title run came later, and Tyler Bates' career allegedly came later. We'll see if it ever gets going again. But the big travesty of that was that they cut the legs off the next level of stars, the next level of people who could have been something on those shows with a bit of time and with the right audiences and with the right shows that ended up ceasing to exist. Now it's even lower than that, isn't it? Now it's like, see Jeff Ogden there in the chat getting frustrated by, the types of wrestlers that him and Andy and the others who travel around the country see, the little bright spots that you see here and there getting snapped up and sent to a European warehouse, and then you never see them again. That's the worry, isn't it? That's the type of thing that they're going to be thinking of.
Oh, God, yeah. And I think in some ways that level of training that they did with them, they never developed. They didn't come, like everything was all about, this is the hard cam. Like, this is how you have to...
I think they did. I think the wrestlers would say they did. I think they got better. They just never did anything with that getting better, How can you not learn when you're in an environment like that, for all the negatives we can say?
I suppose so, but they weren't learning for necessarily much money. And I think the booking of those shows, because if it is, let's just say, throw out some names, if it's Jim Smallman, Trent Seven and Spud who are booking this, it's not going to be good. Because what are their influences now at this point? It's pure WWE. It's going to be purely NXT. It's that same kind of very sanitized like booking, which is just completely anodyne and doesn't there's not going to be any kind of edge to it whatsoever. And I'm not saying like already in the Europe and is kind of edgy, but there's a lot more like less conformity. There's more like embracing of different people and different styles. And it's like you say, it is this idea of it was the tiers they took. It wasn't that top tier. It was the top. It was what it was. Well, there wasn't really much left of the top tier, but it was that second and third, and even into the fourth tier as well. So you were just left with people who were very, very green, or people who were never going to kind of make it. And
this is Man United coming in and like signing all the under 11s. It's like you haven't even developed at that point.
Well, it's like Chelsea.
These wrestlers,
Chelsea coming in and just signing like loads of players, and they're not really doing anything with them, and they seemed perfectly good but they needed game time, and not going to get any of this stuff in there as well. And when they came back on the scene, it's not that they came back in as these big stars. They all seem to come back in some way. Maybe it's just me, and maybe this is how I'm remembering it at this particular moment, but somewhat damaged. So, like, you look at a Lucky Kid, think of where he was in WXW, gets signed by WWE, doesn't achieve really anything. He's come back, and he's a name, he's a guy, obviously he changed his name to Metahan and stuff, but he's just a guy. And then is there going to be European wrestlers they're not doing anything with, who are they basically going to send over and think, well, they're the big stars and stuff like this, but they're not going to be. So even
from a motivation point of view, if you're a wrestler who got signed, and we made fun of it, but they got a contract that said WWE on it, and that was a big achievement that you could tell your family about, and they'd understand it. And then you get released, and then you've got to go back to an indies that's several notches below what it was when you went in. It's no surprise that a lot of people got disheartened, and that's the conversation. There are haves and have-nots, aren't there? For every, could you call Gunther an NXT UK success? Probably. Whether he be a success with it or without it, I don't know. But there's going to be people there are going to be people who would say like a Rhea Ripley even would technically count, or for whatever we think of him, a Jordan Devlin is getting regular work on Monday Night Raw, and that's about as nice as you can be about it. But for every one of them, obviously, there's a Tyler Bate. There's I think Pete Dunne's one of the great travesties of British wrestling in that, like, he's earned a wedge, and I'm sure he's happy, and I'm sure he'd tell you that nobody should call that a travesty, that he's gotten this great career with WWE. But I think we all saw better things for him, didn't we? We all saw higher achievements, maybe not necessarily financially, monetarily, maybe not under the WWE umbrella or even under the WWE umbrella, you know, and he's clearly, you know, not reached that. Like I say, Tyler Bates is probably the best example of one that went nowhere. There's the long list of cancelled people who've obviously gone nowhere and end up crashing out. But yeah, as Jeff Ogden says in the chat, like a Shah Samuels, people like that came back out into the indies a touch less motivated than they were going in. You know, people like Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews, you know, they were company men, and you know they did a good job. They were a fun team in that system, and you know couldn't even get on the Wales WWE pay-per-view. Got put, you know, spat out the other end, and have tried to kind of continue to make a name for themselves. Have obviously had a bit of success with TNA, and you know we've been very high on a lot of their work. But you know it's hard, isn't it, to be motivated coming out of it? You look at like a Zach Gibson, you know, like he got to eat into living. What would he probably tell you about his time in proper NXT? Never mind NXT UK, you know, and consider the alternate timeline we could be living in where he could have lived up to the potential we all saw in him. You know, there's plenty of those stories within those ranks of people who got signed who, you know, hit the head on the glass ceiling of NXT UK and never actually achieved what they could have achieved with a more independent traditional career.
Oh yeah, exactly, and that was the thing you mentioned about like that traditional career. There's a load of people you say, okay, your next step.
A lot of people got the success further out of it. Sorry, sort of like a Jamie Hayter, you know, has been successful despite of NXT UK, not because of it. Dan Maloney is successful despite of NXT UK, not because of it. And again, someone like him might say, you know, he learned a few things from the people in the schools there and from the trainers that they sent in. But you know, his success has come out of there. His success has come working in other places like New Japan. There's a long list of those types of guys too.
Yeah, is Callum Newman better off working for what might be? I mean, I don't know. The financial situation with what they get in New Japan isn't necessarily like exceptional, obviously, and you know that's why a lot of people have sort of headed off and signed elsewhere. But somewhere like him, what he is learning through being in Japan is invaluable. Like Mike DiVecchio and Igor Blanc just recently were in All Japan and they challenged for the All Asia tag titles. They were in the Champions Carnival. They like what they would learn and how they would develop as performers if they were able to do that for a period of time. And if WWE just sort of went, look, we're keeping an eye on you, carry on the route that you're doing. You're going to become a better worker for doing it, and we're going to sign you when you're a bit more seasoned. But definitely, this is what you need to do. We may put even in a good word to try and get you into some of these places. That's the way to go. Leon Slater, for example, if he came to NXT now, I'd say, well, that's probably actually a good shout. Why is it a good shout? Because he's had a good 18 months with TNA to get used to TV wrestling and kind of really like.
Still be soon for me though. I'd still rather spread his wings. You know, look at it. Brilliant example from Black there in the chat. Gabe Kidd. Like, you know, do people remember Gabe Kidd from like his appearances at like the Liverpool WWE UK show, or do they remember him from what he's doing now? And maybe taking what he's learned, you know, from that school and that system and leaving that behind him, shedding that skin and moving on again. Successful despite it rather than because of it.
He had to completely in New Japan. He had to completely start again from scratch, going into the dojo and almost completely retrain himself to become what he is today. And you know, he will end up being signed, and that's and there always is going to be a degree of talent coming through. It's just that they're not being allowed to evolve. I mean, Tyler Bate was always like the big what if in the alternate universe, and he was a hot in New Japan then. Where would he have gone? He would have gone to what do you call it? He would have gone to do a best of the Super Juniors, and he might well have got that kind of like push to get himself over. He would have become like a marketable prospect when they came over to the UK, and then would have signed like. And this is the thing with it is that
Kenny Williams, remember him? Sorry, I'm just going through the list now. Noam Dar, remember him? I think he's still there. A-Kid obviously is you know, getting the tag team of the year in NXT. He's not doing too bad. There's some names like that. Amir Jordan, remember him? Ashton Smith, nobody remembers him. You know, Nathan Fraser's on TV, obviously, with A-Kid there. Rampage Brown, they had him under contract at one point. You would have thought, you know, a long time ago, that would be a WWE success story. Obviously, Fabian Eichner on the out. Just going down the list. Ilya Dragunov, allegedly still there. He could still be something there. He's a positive story. Tony Storm, you forget, was a big part of it. Genie, obviously, retired now, but obviously Tony Storm, again, his success has come more since she's left. The Gallus boys, are they an NXT UK success story? I guess they kind of are, which is depressing, but I guess they kind of are. It's probably true. Joseph Connors, people like Martin had high hopes for. It's a wild list when you look up and down.
It's
Jesus
a terrible
Christ.
list for that. I mean, like,
Johnny Saint is listed there. I wouldn't count him.
Oh God,
Jazzy
no.
Gabbett. No.
Dreadful. Like, but would
Zaya
you be
Brookside? Even she had to leave.
Yeah.
It's Robbie Brookside's own daughter. Like, come on.
Would you be surprised if like Gallus ended up re-signing with it as well? Because that they would just probably go, well, we don't want them on this, but we want them on here as well. And they're a company as well.
Maybe they'll come back. Yeah, Wild Boar, he'll get back in the door.
This is the other thing for it as well. Like, this is always, like we said this at the time with NXT UK. What is good for the wrestler is not as good for the wrestling fan. People getting signed and moving on naturally, that happens. Particularly if you're following wrestling at the level that we are of like UK indies. That's fine. It's accepted and encouraged because it gives the people who are there something to aim for. However, we're not going to I don't think we're going to be getting it this way around. And TKO is a slightly different beast here, whereby Vince was happy and WWE were happy to sign people up to keep them away from like an AEW, to keep them potentially getting a foothold in the UK. I wouldn't be trusting TKO to go, right, well, we need to make some releases because we've got these massive repayments that we've leveraged on here, and we're going to need to make some cuts. So I don't even think there's a financial aspect to it. I don't think they're going to be paid a lot. And no. I'm not entirely...
Not based on history, and not based on the way they run their businesses. Looking at the names of the people they've signed, like Argo Blanc, could you see him being a potential fit? Mike DiVecchio seems an obvious one, but again, you would have liked him to get more seasonings. Zoya, I just don't see him being their style of wrestler. But, we can all see like the star potential in him, just on look alone, really, in the way he carries himself, even if his wrestling style isn't for them. Any quick thoughts on it? Probably gone a bit long on the story, on their success likelihood, or anyone else you expect to be next on the list?
So I think Igel Blanc will... I think he'll be out of a mask straight away, and I think he'll be their French wrestler. That's just how they'll market him. Same thing with Zazoya being their Spanish wrestler.
They're both getting new names as well, 100%.
Oh, yeah, completely getting new years. And Zazoya is young enough, so they'll think, actually, is he going to be adaptable? And he's fitted in incredibly well in Rev Pro. Mike DiVecchio still needs seasoning, even though he has the look. Rio is the obvious one for this, and I think I could see it from the women's side just being like kind of heavily focused around her. I think there's it's whether or not are there people like Lizzie Evo going to go into the mix in there as well. Are there it's hard to see like some of the other wrestlers who there was a lot in the tryouts. My fear is that they signed
Darius seems obvious.
Darius seems obvious
at NXT UK, so
but stylistically I wouldn't want Luke Jacobs to go there. I would like Michael Oku, for example. I wouldn't want him to go there, but then he wasn't at the tryouts. Luke Jacobs was. But Luke Jacobs, for example...
just look at with the extra work on SmackDown a few months ago, and you'll see. It was Luke, it was Ethan, they were both there, weren't they?
Yeah. And I think that they're going to end up signing, and, they might put...
They see like Regal Vanity ones. There was a few of them last time. Regal likes the style he wear with no understanding of, but that's not going to work in WWE, is it? Very clearly, what are you doing? Although I suppose it worked for Gunther and it worked for... that's one we did mention, Axel Dieter. He's done all right, hasn't he? He's done all right to himself. There are some successes. But... Through
being associated with Gunther, and Gunther worked because Gunther kind of held out. Like, as Walter, he held out for a good period of time and went, I'm coming in. It was a more limited contract. He knew, he was like, I've got some other offers as well, so you're going to have to kind of impress me as much as anything, and he knew his own value. And I think for a lot of the other wrestlers who signed, they kind of didn't. They signed because they saw WWE, and it was like, okay, I've signed with WWE now. This is where I'm at. Do I think this will end well? Obviously not. It never does, and it won't end well. And it'll be when it starts to come on TV, it'll be some of the most anodyne TV that's on there. And they'll end up running Coventry Skydome to 500 people doing 4-hour shows, and there'll be people falling asleep in the crowd in no time.
Nailed on. But you'll be there, JP, I'm sure. I won't fucking help it. NXT Thailand's coming to an arena near you. It makes it set up better watch the backs. But yeah, more on that obviously as we get it. And obviously if we find out more about the, like I say, I believe it's going to be later in the year, October-ish time. But if we get more on Weekend Show, we'll of course talk it there. But yeah, we're going to talk more WWE in a bit, but we had to start there when it comes to the podcast there. It's our bread and butter, mate, having a go at NXT UK and the food on those poor British wrestlers' tables. But on that note, we should switch gears to a bit of AEW, and there's a bit of a big AEW news we got today. Obviously, it's Double or Nothing week, unbelievably, as well as Saturday night's main event week, which we're going to be talking in a little bit. So it's going to feel a little bit like a weekend show. This one, I'd say JP, but like maybe in reverse, we're doing it this week. I was stalling there as I was playing with the Toronto Sun website that really wants me to disable my pop-up blocker, but I really don't want to. I'll try and get the story up on Post Wrestling. But essentially, AEW is bringing its all-out pay-per-view to Toronto in September the 20th. I remember that from the press release, which I might as well just bring up that they've sent to my inbox here. Coming almost a full month, calendar month after Forbidden Door. Obviously, they've shuffled the calendar around already this year. Tony Khan has broken a few of his little traditions this year, hasn't he? Obviously, Double or Nothing this week, usually is the Vegas show in May, and with WrestleMania in the rear window, he's chosen not to go in that route, all in, moving up in the year to July, and not being in the UK was a big change. And this now, who knew, JP, doing two pay-per-views the week after each other was probably a bad idea, and separating them out is probably a better idea. But on top of that, with the Chicago residency coming up and them just being at Chicago for Dynamite, it did feel, even for AEW and even for Tony Khan's traditions, unlikely that they were going to be running it all out in Chicago again. And yeah, thankfully you can see they've changed it again. Scotiabank Arena it is for all out, as I load the press release up here that they have lovingly sent to me, JP. I get no invites, but I do get the press releases. But yeah, obviously, as I know from experience, great town is Toronto, great venue is the Scotiabank, and yeah, it seems like a great fit for a big show, and I'm sure our Canadian listeners and friends are going to be filling out the place for this. I love it. I think it's a great move.
I think it's a great move. I would say that this is the kind of stuff they should do, partly because if you're doing most of your pay-per-views in the US and they're doing one give or take every single month, then you need to space them out. That's a good tip to take from WWE, whereby they'll hold a couple overseas, and it means the next pay-per-view in the US becomes even hotter ticket. So going back to Toronto, always really good for it. They'll have Kenny Omega back on this one, because did he wrestle? He did wrestle at Forbidden Door. It was him and Will Ospreay, wasn't it, in 2023 that they had there as well. It's on a good run. I think there's going to be a lot more enthusiasm for going back there this time round. I mean, obviously, they've put hit on here that Cope and Christian Cage squared off in there as well. Well, they'll be on there as a tag team at this stage as well.
Yes, the FTR match happens there, 100%. If not the Young Bucks, like we're getting that.
Yeah, exactly, and that's absolutely fair enough. The fact that we've got like a good month between this and Forbidden Door as well, just like plainly obvious. There's no reason to run two of these in 2 weeks, because even for the fans who are going to want to go, it's just like, oh, well, you want to feel excited for it. You want to see a bit of the build for it. We'll talk a bit about the build for Double or Nothing in a few minutes. But I think it's always a smart move. Toronto's a really good media market as well. It's just they need to kind of go, pardon the pun, all out when it comes to trying to kind of advertise it and market it. Because I know one of the things when WWE did Money in the Bank there is they had shops up there and all sorts like that. Something that AEW hasn't necessarily been great on in the past, but they have been, for the most part, a lot more sensible when it's come to their booking of their venues and things like that. So this feels like
another step in the right direction.
Another step in the right direction.
There's no argument to run Chicago again for it. I absolutely love it, and yeah, it's got me. I was thinking of like maybe doing a bit of an extended stay, not to give away too much of what I've got planned in my own life, but I did want to get back to Toronto maybe for an extended stay, but it wasn't going to be this year, I don't think. I wish this was like January or February or something like that. Then I'd really be considering it. But still, consideration. Platt saying there he's going to check out fights for it. It is an amazing town to go and watch wrestling in. Hopefully they can do more like what WWE do when I obviously had that experience of seeing AEW in New Jersey and then seeing WWE in Toronto, and WWE putting like the shop up with all the gear and stuff like that, and you get all the stuff going on locally. And AEW doesn't tend to do those things from personal experience. Maybe they can do a little bit more of that, and like you say, like last time, lean on Kenny Omega and lean on Edge and Christian, and having that dynamic. If there was ever a place you're going to unleash that, that's absolutely the place. I think it's a really smart move, and in an era where AEW is not quite as hot as where it was, but we've got some stories in a minute that maybe do say otherwise. do what WWF did in the mid-90s, lean on Canada, lean on Europe, lean on go to where the people are, because, you know, these people are going to come out in numbers. I'm so sure Davey and Braden are going to be putting on before parties and after parties and all kinds. They'll best believe there'll be a lot going on in Toronto this weekend. Like, they will. It is a place that's going to support something like this, just like we do.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. I think it's always been like a really good hot wrestling market in there. They've got good Canadian wrestlers. You've got even Speedball Mike Bailey. If you wanted to put out, like, let's say,
that's true,
French language adverts to try and get in a few fans from Montreal, then to do that as well. But it is like, you know, they're running only over here very sort of selectively there as well. But they do need to space out some of these while they've got it right. The residencies I'm generally in favour with, because when they did it in Arlington, it seems good. When they're doing it in Philadelphia and Chicago, and a smaller, more central venue in Chicago, smartly as well. Like, these are good things. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see them do a residency in Toronto as well if they were going to do that at that stage. But it's always good business, because it makes you seem more like a proper, like, international company if they're going overseas and they're in a few different places. I mean, obviously they're doing Grand Slam in Arena, Mexico. Like, these are things from just a pure business perspective. Particularly now they've got this TV deal and they've got this money, that they're actually making, I think, just in the main, some quite good, smart business decisions about, even though they've got this money and technically they should be running at a profit reasonably soon, they are now going to find themselves in a position where it's just like they're still waste and fat. I think the next thing to improve is the marketing, the merchandising, you know, your advertising budgets, all those things. I think they're the next stages for me, and I'll be confident that they're going to be coming.
While you were talking, I was just looking up to see if we had an updated number on Forbidden Door tickets, talking about, like, you know, AEW's success internationally. Some of our American friends have been doing somersaults for AEW and the tickets they've sold for Forbidden Door. Nothing to be sniffed at, though. Like, I think it's approaching 12,000 at last check on WrestleTix, and that was way earlier in the month, so I imagine we'll get an updated number soon. They're going to be at 15,000, 16,000, aren't they? It's going to happen. Have you got them? You sorted? There you go. Add two more to the list.
Yeah, well, three more, because there's me, Joe, and is it four more? Me, Joe, his brother, and Cooper. And we got them at £53 each. We're literally in the back fucking row, like literally in the back row, and obviously we'll do a classic £53 each. Which, you know, for big premium events in this day and age, I'm kind of all right with.
I like the back row. I was back row for a WCW house show. No, it was a Thunder taping at the Manchester Arena. And my little brother, Sean, like, you know, when those red laser pens were a big thing, Sean right in Sting's eyes. You can still see it on the Thunder broadcast on the show. I'm not proud of it. I just think it was fun. I thought it was funny at the time because I was a stupid teenager. But back row was fun. That's probably if I'm going to be near the back, I'd rather be at the back. It's a bit like that in the Upper Gladys, RIP in peace, at Goodison.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm with you on that. You get a bit of space. You don't have to worry about standing up and stuff like that, because you're not going to piss anyone off. And also, you're kind of just like slightly left alone. And it means that when you do try and sneak down and stuff like this, I think it'll work out.
Yeah, Andy was back row for Wembley. Stefan and Mum are looking at getting tickets to go see Guns N' Roses at Wembley. Them tickets look expensive, even compared to AEW. But yeah, even back row, you still get a good view of Axel tripping over on the stage and doing what else he does.
And not starting until fucking midnight or whatever wacky Axl Rose story comes out of that. I've never heard, ever since Gareth went to see him at the Tottenham Hotspur ground, he was like they were fucking dreadful, and I've always taken it from that as well.
Part of the experience, though, wouldn't it? You want to see them be good. You don't want to see them be good. Come on.
You were a lot more bullish, by the way, on the Forbidden Door tickets than I were. I thought they would always get.
I just think it's a low number. I just believe they'll do it regardless. Same with
I think so now. I think they'll do it. We'll know we're still like a few months away.
I don't even learn lessons from it. I think that's the mistake some people are making. I don't think it necessarily means a lot. Like, it's again, we're a strong market. Did it mean a lot when TNA sold great over here? Did it mean TNA were doing brilliantly? No, it just meant we had a really strong audience and TNA had good footprints in the UK. Good things, positive things, but not necessarily, you know, things to over celebrate. It's good though, like, and it's more something AEW should be leaning more into.
Yeah, and it's and this is a funny one. I know you're speaking about HBO Max. That gets entirely carried by Sky pretty soon. Becomes its own sort of thing on Sky. And that makes me wonder whether or not is at some stage any part of AEW going to fit into that equation as well. I'm not too sure. I imagine the deal with ITV could kibosh some of that stuff, but it's how they kind of get that exposure to kind of really push them over the line if they are thinking about coming back to Wembley in 2026.
That ties us into a nice little story that's kind of been going on over the last few days. We've got a roving reporter, Simon, in our midst, who's sorted this out for us. But there was a bit of doubt because weirdly, Double or Nothing wasn't showing up on Triller TV, like up until literally today. Somebody got round to adding it, at least for the UK. And Meltzer didn't know. Meltzer was talking about it on Observer Radio. People were asking him on Twitter, where can I watch Double or Nothing if I'm in the UK? And he was about, YouTube's an option, isn't it? Amazon's an option. It's 25 quid though, isn't it, if you do one of those two? It's more expensive. One's $19.99, one's $24.99. Not the nice Triller price with the US dollar being weak compared to the British pound or the Thai baht, which I might have to consider when I get to consider looking at it. But it looks like Panic Station's over. It looks like it is in fact on the Triller site now, and it's not just because I'm out here. I did double check with a few of our UK based friends, and it does appear that the Double or Nothing is now on Triller for UK fans at the $19.99 $8 AEW plus price, which we all like, or Garrett likes, because let's all be honest, he pays for all our pay-per-views that we get to watch. Maybe there was something to that though. Maybe that's the reason behind the delay and the reason behind journalists trying to get an answer to that question and not being able to get it.
Yeah, it does make you. It's a really funny one as well, because for Triller, you have to imagine that AEW is kind of their bread and butter, more so than Saudi and Dutch football. Like, whatever random MMA stuff they're offering, and any of the wrestling on Triller Plus is just like a kind of an added extra. AEW is going to be the big revenue driver for them, particularly because you always hear the stories anecdotally, the amount of people who are getting in like VPNs and everything else. But you can imagine that there is stuff in terms of like the pricing and how that works. Is they're like trying to negotiate a kind of a new deal and maybe charge a little bit more. Like, that wouldn't be surprising for that to be the case. Like, AEW probably know their value to Triller TV, and Triller need them. It's just that Triller have become very much part of the wrestling pay-per-view ecosystem. So they are, and
it's like, mostly very odd, isn't it? When you complain about a Triller stream, unless it's the promotion's fault, it's rare. Obviously, this week's Collision had some issues, but I believe that was on the television, not necessarily at the fault of Triller. Mostly it works. Ben saying here in the chat, I've noticed him saying that on the Discord. He buys on Prime. It's £19.99 on there, so it's 25 on it on YouTube, I believe. But he's saying the quality is just that much better, picture-wise. Might get a better quality picture, I suppose, if they do start offering it on something over here, whether it be TNT Sports or some version of Max that we end up out here. Will saying in the chat there, obviously Turner about to complete the buyout of BT stakes in TNT Sports. Is that true? Why? That's interesting as well, JB.
Yeah, I think so, because I think that's Warner Brothers Discovery, and TNT Sports are investing a lot more. Like, for example, they've got the FA Cup, and obviously they've got all of the sort of European competitions and stuff in there as well. So,
because a lot of it's just a name, isn't it? Because you're like across the world, like TNT and Sky kind of cross pollinate with different programming that's natively broadcast on one in its base country, and then depending on the country it's in. I think Satanta Sports still exists in some countries based on my IPTV. There's a few interesting ones that have some of the rights to some of this stuff. It's complicated. I remember Steph asking Tony Khan about it when BT changed to TNT over here, and asking him, did that mean anything for AEW?
Yeah, it is so weird, and it's difficult to keep up with, because it all depends on like what sport you're watching and at which particular time, and obviously there's still NBA and stuff on there. What's going to happen then when that goes to is that all going to go to Amazon in there as well? I mean, they've got obviously Amazon as a good partner for the TVs, which I think as much as anything else just adds a level of credibility that Amazon Prime are covering you as a pay-per-view option, and people just like the simplicity of, I've got Amazon Prime, I've got it as a button on my remote control, so to get through to ordering it is incredibly easy. It doesn't require any work in there. That's an interesting one to keep an eye on, because I've always imagined, there's always been a part of me that thought AEW will be on TNT Sports soon enough, because they all saw the value of wrestling in terms of adding in a regular kind of audience and fan base. So Yeah,
Look, the old BT Sports was willing to put up with NXT UK just for more content. They even let them use the studio. It feels like a layup.
Might get Shockwave eventually. Yeah,
if it ever exists. Apparently not. We'll see. But I mean, on that note, obviously, while we're talking, Double or Nothing, as Ben says, HBO Max arriving in the UK early next year. It'll be a factor too. What's your excitement level going into the weekend? We'll give it the full preview on the weekend show this week, so we'll keep it brief, but just to talk it kind of broad strokes in the overall card. At the minute, it looks like we've got Garcia and McGuinness for the FTR, Mark Briscoe, Ricochet. They've done a decent job of getting to for quite a low stakes match, but good stuff. Hit Syndicate wrestling the Sons of Texas, which has come off this weekend's what will likely be record low Collision, and that record low AEW tag division we talked about on the last weekend show. That's probably the best you're getting, to be honest, based on the crew of jobbers that came out on last week's Dynamite. Tony Storm and Shirakawa was set up on last week's Dynamite. Mercedes Moné and Jamie Hayter has had some good build. I think that both of those are strong, I think, as far as women's matches for the show. Hangman Page and Will Ospreay has been, very patented, tag team partners who can't get along type build, but with a bit of a nuance and a bit of needle. I've enjoyed it, and not even just when the faces were smashed together like on last week's Dynamite. And of course, it's May, so we've got to do our obligatory Anarchy in the Arena match. I talked often about my distaste for that back when TNA would do the lockdown pay-per-view and it was cage matches because it was cage match month. Never liked it. Royal Rumble aside, I don't think anniversary matches necessarily work for me, and it'll be fucking blood and guts soon as well, won't it? But obviously that's not a bad use of the cast of characters they've got in there while they're all in a bit of holding pattern, your swerves and your omegas for something a little bit more serious. But yeah, what you make of that as an overall card, and what's your interest level like in a lot of those programs right now?
It's not my strike. Some of the programs I find a little bit weird. Like, I'm looking probably at the Daniel Garcia, Nigel McGuinness versus FTR. I would not have predicted 4 weeks ago that would be a match that they're doing on here. But they are. There's a novelty value to it. In the same way, even like it's quite like Hurt Syndicate versus Sons of Texas, which just more exposes stuff about the tag division. This feels to me, there's one match in terms of Hangman versus Will Ospreay where I'm going, you've got good arguments for either one of them winning. You'd expect it to be match of the night by like
could go on last. That or the women's final could go on last. Like, because you don't have to. I suppose Anarchy in the Arena, they're going to break everything. I suppose it probably will go on last. But the main event singles match maybe will be Hangman and Ospreay if it's not Mercedes and Jamie Hayter.
Yeah, I think Hangman Ospreay's just got more to it because it feels to me Mercedes versus Jamie Hayter, I'd be almost convinced. I can't see any argument that it's not going to be Mercedes Moné winning that. Why? Yeah. Because this is the pay-per-view that's very much like, okay, this is the pay-per-view that it's there to build to All In. So you're setting up your main event for All In. You're setting up your big women's match for All in there as well. I mean, Tony Storm's beating Mina Shirakawa. It's a nice way of squaring that circle, of just like finishing that kind of program, and you've got like at least some good storyline reasons for that to happen in there as well. The Anarchy in the Arena, it's going to be what it is. It'll probably be enjoyable in the moment for it. Chris says there, now he's, well, it depends how he is getting down Everest, which we know is it's not like he can just grab a sledge and just fucking, here we go, I'm just going to slide all the way down. Here I am in base camp in 15 minutes. It's like it's going to be heavy duty stuff. But he will be appearing in that as well. And you'd imagine there's going to be some storylines that then follow on from that match in and of itself. So in some ways, it's those top three matches are the ones where I'm kind of more enthused by. Mark Briscoe Ricochet will probably be good. Don't get me wrong. Partly because I'm enjoying Ricochet and I've loved this Mark Briscoe run. But they're not matches. And this is where the other thing as well is that this week with Dynamite and Collision, we're going to be getting a fuckload of other matches chucked onto this. And that's the thing. It's like almost just leave it at this. Just give the stuff that's on this time and put the stuff that you're going to put on the zero on the zero.
Would it be though? I'm not sure. I mean, I almost feel like that
Speedball Okada, is that not going to be? Is that?
Oh yeah, that's rumored. That is one. Yeah, I mean, I think that'd strengthen the card. I think that'd be okay.
Yeah.
If that was it, I'd be all right with it. Yeah. I mean, I don't want them to be victims either of actually. They've done this is not a last minute. Now we're finding out all the matches stuff. I don't think there's anything here that's massively heavy duty. There's like, this is your big time main event. Paige Ospreay's the closest thing, isn't it? And, it's a tournament final. It's babyface versus babyface, but it feels like it's, a fight for the future of AEW, but actually quite legitimately this time, because it'll be interesting to see who wins that and what the direction is going into All In. That's your biggest big match. Maybe it's lacking other ones, but everything here has had effort put into it and has, had signposting and, clearly complaint we'd always make about AEW storyboarding and stuff like that. Like, know what your end result is and work backwards. They've clearly done it, even with the feuds we're not that into. They've clearly done it. Like Mark Briscoe and Ricochet have been interacting for what feels like 6 months now. The Garcia and Nigel McGuinness thing, feels a bit out of nowhere. Maybe wouldn't necessarily be something I would necessarily have booked, but they put the work in over the last few weeks. Like, say, both of the women's division matches, as we talked about on Weekend Show, coming kind of together in the same segment on Dynamite last week. Like, both have had the work put in. Like I say, Paige and Ospreay's had the work put in, and we don't like it, but everyone in the Anarchy in the Arena match, has had reason to get involved with each other. And again, it is patterned. It's the multi-man match, it's happening, or multi-person match, it's happening, so everyone has to interact, and we have to do all these wild brawls. But they've done it. They've ticked those boxes for the last 4 weeks, In EWR, Sophie would be telling you, you've done the build, the heat has gone up. I can't really... It's been very, very competent, which is usually a word we throw at a Triple H and WWE and almost, mean it as a slight. It's been... Every match there has got a reason for existing, and, has got investment to some level or another.
That's it. If you think, what was the last big pay-per-view was Revolution, wasn't it? That was the one where there was a lot of, kind of stuff really coming to the end. And then what was the last pay-per-view they had? Was it Dynasty? It was Dynasty.
Dynasty, yeah. It was like 6 billion years ago.
And that was one where that was a bit more haphazard, because it was weird how it
was the rush one because of WrestleMania.
Yeah, because of WrestleMania, and it sort of they had it scheduled and it was there. Yeah. This one I'm looking at it is a B pay-per-view, ultimately, if you're thinking of what the big shows of the year are going to end up being. But I don't mean that as a slight, and I said this about Dynamite last week. Dynamite last week just needed to confirm some matches. They only had 2 announced at that point. They needed to get a few on there, even though we kind of knew what the directions are going to be. I just want to see Dynamite confirming those directions, maybe adding on Speedball and Okada, and then you'll have some matches on the 0 hour, which is fine. I could care less personally, but they don't need to over-rig the pudding with this. And they do say, like you say, they've looked at what we're having for All in Texas. How do we get to that point? We need to do this. And it means delivering on that stage what are the biggest matches that they could do there as well. So, they'll get around it. It's just that we know that Paige Ospreay will be long. We know Anarchy in the Arena will be long. I imagine Mercedes Moné and Hater's going to be at least sort of 20 minutes in there as well at the same
Probably
time.
Less. I'd say 15 to 20. I think that's okay. Yeah. Maybe that's the reason there aren't other big matches. Maybe we should be careful what we wish for when there is, like you say. And then in the Arena, it's going to go the guts of an hour. One of the big singles match is probably enough. I think that's absolutely fine. Yeah. But overall, quite looking forward to it. Obviously, the TV of late, I don't know what's happened with Collision this week. Just honestly, I don't even know what a talking point would be if we tried to talk about it. The half an hour that went missing because of some kind of tech issue on the West Coast. That's all you could really talk about when it comes to that show. I thought we'd lost JP. I think you were doing a Sopranos meme there. You were fading to black to be like the TBS West Coast feed, but. Yeah, it existed this week. It was nice they did the tribute to Steve McMichael. I could have done without seeing Ric Flair. That's about my thoughts on it. Obviously, this week's Dynamite looks a bit more of an interesting proposition coming up this Wednesday.
Yeah, Dynamite this week. I mean, obviously, just to go through the card for that, because Collision, I've honestly got fuck all to say. Other than it got the confirmation and we're getting the Sons of Texas because they beat Crew, who I will never...
dotted some I's and crossed some T's when it came to the matches for the show, pretty much. Yeah.
That was
Kyle Fletcher and AR Fox was all right.
Yeah,
that's it.
Which is fine. So I like AR Fox and I really enjoyed Kyle Fletcher. Yeah,
Christian Mike Bailey was all right too.
That's it. It's and we're not affected by the technical glitch. That's not a thing that necessarily has to bother us. Unless we're watching on a dodgy box. But if you're watching on Triller, it's just there, and it's there in its entirety.
It was on Wrestling. I'm not sure if Triller had the full version on it. I'm sure there's some people saying it didn't. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, there was a few things. Yeah, it was on an hour's delay, I think, or something. I'd say I watched it today. That's when I fitted it in, and it felt like a bit of a slog. and that's and I
There's
don't
most
think that
rampagey Collision's felt in a while.
Yeah, but Collision's been really fucking good, even if it's not had all the big stars on it. I've enjoyed so much stuff that's been on there over the last couple of months.
I just don't want it to fall into the AEW dark mold, which again, it was more that than just me.
It didn't help being on after the Dynamite, because I think that was the thing that massively affected it.
Yeah,
the crowd energy was down and stuff like that. It felt like it was a bit like, it would be like a mammoth taping, and there's people who, because obviously it's not in central Chicago, they're going to be going home. They're going to be thinking, I need to go home at various points, and that's going to be the issue there. But for Dynamite this week, which is a double taping as well, another one of these from Albuquerque at the Rio Ranch Event Center there as well. The Dynamite lineup is Jon Moxley and the Bucks versus Samoa Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Swerve Strickland. Mina Shirakawa versus Julia Hart. 2 face-to-faces, which I should be shot the same way if I'd have it my way, to just sort of more build the Owen tournament, which is Ospreay and Hangman, and Mercedes and Jamie Hayter. And then MJF is signing his contract with the Hurt Syndicate. And I don't think that story is going to be played out at Double or Nothing.
That's more of a TV thing, isn't it? I don't think you get the big moments and that on pay-per-view. We're going to get it on TV, on Dynamite next week, and whatever they do to follow up this angle. Absolutely. I was going to say as well, quickly as well, on AEW, we've got to mention it before we move on, and we did use it as the episode image behind you there. We've got to talk Darby making it to the top of Everest. He did it. He posted the picture on his Instagram, which AEW have shared here on Twitter, because Darby is just not active on his own Twitter for whatever reason. Maybe he's over on Blue Sky. I'm not sure, but there he is with as promised, with the AEW flag. I'm pretty sure that's the same flag I had in the background and my old setup in my old living room. How'd you react to that? What a mark, or that's kind of cool, or is that how he convinced Tony to let him have this time off to climb it? I'm going to plant that AEW flag. He just loves the company that much. That's how much of a babyface he is. Obviously, Platt said there about him coming back at Double or Nothing. I'm not so sure, because he just can't. Everest, that feels soon even for Darby Allin, for him to 1, get down, 2, get back, and 3, be healthy enough to do it. Feels soon, but obviously there was talk, over the last few weeks, that was the stated goal, once upon a time, that he'd be back for Double or Nothing, and finally will put us out of our misery when it comes to the Moxley stuff. Saying that's Darby Allin, isn't it? He comes straight off the mountain to riding on a skateboard into the Double or Nothing main event. It's probably the most likely scenario part of this, but I guess it's cool. I don't know if it's been worth the 4 months of TV or whatever we've had to fill while he's been gone.
I mean, it's cool in the sense that, has a WWE wrestler done this? No. But you've got an AEW flag at the top of Everest. In and of itself, that's reasonably impressive. As Chris says here, I mean, if he put up the Tony Khan Wanks Dogs flag, that would have really, I would have laughed at that. And he would have been out of a job. And he certainly wouldn't have been appearing at Double or Nothing or appearing in any main events anytime soon. But fuck me, we would have laughed at that. I think it's kind of cool for it, just because have we seen a wrestler do this?
There you go. There it is, sorted. Ben's actually already done it on our Discord. The Dogs version. That might have to be the show of it,
Oh, well, that would be. And again, it will just solidify. I don't think you're getting even the press releases after this. That's that fucking done and dusted on there as well. But I think it's kind of cool for him to do it. It's just that my impression of climbing Mount Everest, as I'm sure I said earlier, it seems it seems hard. It didn't seem like I could wander up there in a pair of fucking trainers and just go, I got to the top. That was a good one. Yeah. Loads of people died. It's a whole film, shit film, I have to say, with a very good cast. And they all fucking die. Loads of them die up there. It is banging song. But yeah, it's a very, I have to say, I think it's more than anything else, it's the kind of thing they should be going to, getting that out as part of their media team, because it feels it's like a no-brainer. AEW on top of Mount Everest. They should be using that in promos. They should be using digitized versions of this, of him, I don't know, AI versions of it, which probably means Darby Allin will be replaced by a baby version of himself stood on top of fucking Everest with an AEW flag in there as well. So yeah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, if he slid down on his arse on a sled with the AEW flag wrapped around his shoulders to get down in time so he can get a flight from the pool fucking the pool, by the way, going to Arizona. How is his body going to cope with that? Being at like -40 to being in a desert state.
But again, it's Darby Allin, isn't it? It's still Darby Allin. Like, all bets are off, aren't they? And logically, it makes no sense to me, but it's Darby Allin. A lot of things he did makes no logical sense. But there we go. He did it. Now, let's end the Death Riders. Let's move on, and we'll all be very much happier for it. But on that note, we should move over to things to do. We already talked the NXT UK story, so there isn't too much other WWE stuff to go through. Just a small matter of apparently there's a show on this weekend called Saturday Night's Main Event, JP, the real big show of the weekend, according to Matty this week. I can't believe this show. I can't believe this one feels like a joke. This one feels like one that's been made up by JP. This one feels like, there's no way this can possibly be the real card. But yes, it is. It is in fact taking place this weekend, and it is in fact. I don't know if you saw much of the highlights, at least of SmackDown, highlighted by a very taking this very seriously. Ron Killings against deadpan John Cena. I'll give you the full card, JP. Obviously, we'll preview it in full on weekend show. But yeah, all roads are headed to Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest again, which is of course the match, because Drew McIntyre just can't escape this hell, as he's been tweeting about this week. About he did the Simpsons meme with Mo throwing Barney out of the pub and then turning around and there he is again. That's Drew and Damian Priest. CM Punk and Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins. To be fair, the segment on Raw this week, I watched it today, was fucking that crowd were loud for Punk, and they were into the whole Punk and Sami Zayn as unwilling baby faces teaming up, at least over on this channel. Jey Uso, Logan Paul has obviously got the shadow of Gunther looming over it. I feel like Gunther should be doing better things than what he was doing on Raw this week, which was almost talking up Logan Paul for this match. But again, Jey Uso got a similar pop to CM Punk. I would say not quite as loud, but I'll argue with that on Matty when it's earlier in the evening. And of course, the main event of John Cena versus R-Truth. Let's hope they keep it to 5 matches at least. But yeah, is this going to be the highlight of your weekend, JP?
No. Not at all. Probably more excited about NXT Battleground, which I think is on the Sunday as well.
Ron versus John. I like that.
Ron versus John. Yeah. I mean, like, bloody hellfire. The tag match, yeah. I'd be in for that. Steel cage match, I'm like, why?
Tag match sounds like fun. Like, especially based on the crowd reactions this week. Like, yeah.
It's a really good TV match to put on for something like this.
Because it is TV at the end of the day, it is.
Yeah. I don't have an issue with that at all. Even Jey Uso versus Logan Paul, because I'm just expecting Gunther to come out and take out Logan Paul, and in order to make sure that he's getting Jey Uso for the title. But I don't.
They've lost the track on what Logan Paul is supposed to be, like at the same speed of which he's kind of. The bloom has come off the rose with how, it's the reality guy and he can do moves. Like, they're making that way. It's like the same thing they did with Ronda Rousey. She ended up just being, she was crap too, but she was just on TV so much that she just became an ordinary part of the roster, and that was bad. Like, it was better when she felt special, and same thing for Logan Paul. I wouldn't mind if this was his only TV appearance for the last couple of months, and they were bringing him to pop a number, as it were, on Saturday night's main event, but... An ever-present member of the roster, not really for me, and the knocking out Jey Uso thing over and over again, not for me either.
Who's carrying the workload in that match? That's the other thing in this. Like Logan Paul's performance.
I'll be nice. Jey Uso and Braun Breaker had a fun match this week on Raw. Fun is the only word I'm willing to use. I'm not willing to go far as good. I'm not going to say great, but it was fun.
Okay.
Hopefully Matty doesn't listen this far.
I'll take your word for it.
So it could be fun.
It could be. It could also, and probably more realistically, not be very good in that. Just because of going back, and that's as much based on Logan Paul's recent pay-per-view performances, where he just seemed like a guy. And it's just like, no, we're going to make you work properly. And it's just like, you've kind of missed the trick with, like you say, with what Logan Paul is. He's an attraction who does stuff where you just like, fucking hell, this guy seems to really get wrestling, but it happens sporadically. Ron versus John better be like 5 minutes. There is no way that should be being fucking dragged out to anything more than that.
It shouldn't be a match in the first place.
And then building up who Cena's going to be taking on next, but then we'll, I don't know. Is it going to be the return of Cody or whatever? Or like almost even thinking about what are we going to be doing?
They probably won't waste that at SNME. I honestly, I do think Gunther's winning the belt on Raw. I'm almost trying to push Matty into recording that show with me on like Tuesday, maybe, just so we can see what the result of Raw is. Don't think it's going to happen. He's got a busy Sunday night with Liverpool winning the league, and you know all that involves. Council will be shutting down roads. Didn't shut the roads down for Everton apparently, but they'll be shut down. You best believe it on Sunday night around the Liverpool area. That lad won't sleep until Wednesday, so I'm not sure I'm going to get my request on that one.
No, I don't think you will for that one on there as well. And judging by how a lot of the Everton stuff from what Gareth was saying, it'd be a lot of people on the fucking ale as well that Sunday. I mean, I can't be excited by Saturday night's main event is what it is for me at this stage.
Truth, it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Though. Even Matty can't defend it. It is insane. Like, why? Just why? Even as a joke, like it should be a match that gets advertised at the start of Raw and it's happened by the end of hour one, and it's over with, and we never think about it again. Like giving it build and a slot on Saturday night's main event is insane.
That's it. And like it's funny. I've got, like if Sami Zayn wasn't involved in that tag match, just think about him versus John Cena, and you think, okay, that's you wouldn't be expecting Sami Zayn to win, but the dynamic would be a hell of a lot better, and you'd have a good worker in there with Cena who can cover up the many failings he has at this stage of his career as well. R-Truth ain't doing that, like at all. Like, just can't be arsed with it. But I will end up watching some of it, obviously.
Other on-screen WWE happenings. We haven't had the chance to talk about this. Jeffrey Cobb over in WWE. And by saying that out loud, I think I make the point. I mean, you asked to change his name. JC, we're calling him. Okay. I guess it's a bit. I say that was speaking to the converter there, only JP Mateo. That could be you. JC Mateo kind of works. Got a ring to it, hasn't it, mate? Big fan.
This is the thing about this. And I heard John Pollock mention this. This is a really good point, which is if his name had been on the Indies and in New Japan, JC Mateo, and they changed it to Jeff Cobb, people would have been losing their fucking mind about how shit that is. JC Mateo isn't the worst name. My issue is more about how he's presented and what he's wearing. It's those things. Yeah. It just looks fucking... It's just like, can you just let him wear the gear he's always kind of been wearing?
Feels like Taz, doesn't it? We were talking about that on Sunday. Yeah. This has been my outfit. You know, just emphasise that he's short.
That's the thing. It's like that. I could understand. Like I could.
Shouldn't have wore them skinny jeans. Should we said it last week?
No,
it was a bad choice.
Really shouldn't. It's you know, and again, this goes back even to a point I think I heard on Voices of Wrestling with this, and I think it's a really fair point as well. Like, what is Jeff Cobb? He is this guy who is very wide, very broad, but he's doing standing moonsaults and he's doing big power moves. So you just forget that, and you don't emphasize like the body type in that way. But instead, we've got him in the these clothes. They just don't suit him as well, and he just looks fucking terrible. The name I could probably give less of a shit about. Like, if I'm truthful about it.
John, I always say, what if Cassius Ohno signed for WWE anyway? Guess what they're calling him? You won't believe it. Chris Hero. Like, you'd piss yourself laughing. Like, Gunther to Walter, if it was the other way around, we'd all have the same conversations, wouldn't we? I don't think it really means anything. I don't think JC Mateo is actually a great name, to be honest. I just don't think Jeff Cobb was either. But yeah, the booking is probably more going to be the problem. As long as he's higher in the card than Solo Sikoa, which he probably still will be, we'll be all right. Doing the role he was born to play as Solo Sikoa, a manager.
Yeah, which I'm all right with, as long as it doesn't involve him actually
also,
getting in the
like Matty, didn't watch SmackDown. It's fucking shit, and I think even he's losing the will to live on those 3-hour SmackDowns now.
Well, he wasn't. He was one of many people, just leading nicely into the next story, who didn't watch SmackDown this week. Partly, and this again, I'm going to come back to because it was up against NBA and NHL competition on there as well. So 1.2.
Oh, we didn't mention that, but AEW doing well against that competition.
Yeah,
though, you know, Turner apparently really happy with them.
Completely held up. Like, and I know a lot of people are still saying the 500,000 on max stuff, and it's just like, show me hard data that backs that up, and then I'll fully go and engage with it. But for SmackDown, massive effect on it as well. It was down 11.3% last year as well, 0.36 in the old, you know, one of the lowest ratings since November 15th. It feels like a sort of rating they were doing when they'd have to go over to, like, was it Fox Sports or something like that. It was it was like it would have to be like changing.
Still fourth on TV. You should say.
Yeah,
still fourth on cable.
It did. it's just obviously not at the level of what it had been before. And they're up against the business end of real sports in terms of the NBA and the NHL. It's just the fact that AEW didn't lose anything on those nights as well. But they've also had the benefit of being able, it's cross-pollination with the same network. So it all works out quite nicely. So they'll be kind of happy with it. I've got no strong thoughts on the Florida Panthers versus the Toronto Maple Leafs, which John and Way were very...
He's got strong thoughts on SmackDown too. He's not a fan.
Oh, no. And I can see why. Just partly because of just how fucking long it is in there as well. But someone who is a big fan of a lot of it, 13 million in live gate revenue over a 2-week period. This was 7-figure. This was in March and in early April in there as well. Like, I mean, I won't go through all of them, but this includes the show in Belfast, which is 1 million gate, Nottingham, nearly 1 million, SmackDown, which is 2.62 million, O2, 12,557 tickets sold, which I have to say Forbidden Door is going to be absolutely fucking clearing. Just to throw that out there as well. 2.8 million was the live gate for that. Raw, 14,816 sold, which again, Forbidden Door's going to clear that. That was 3.58 million it did there as well.
Cheaper tickets, but let's see on the gate.
When it went to the Rosemont, Illinois, in the All-State, 15,000 tickets sold, 2.2 million in there, so 13.2 million in there, and that's what they are. They're just a revenue-producing machine for these. But there's, I think, even like, is it Saturday night's main event or was it Raw? It was like, you know, it could hold 22,000. They can minimise those Raw sets. They know how to do it. And I think it was 10,000 for quite a while in there as well. So yeah. Not particularly great attendances, but they're charging a fuckload for it. We've seen the stories anecdotally of them come over to Dublin if you're wanting to buy tickets.
Yeah, I'm just looking. So the Money in the Bank show that me, Steph, and Matty were at in 2024, which was the Bloodline tag main event that Matty cried tears of watching, just under 20,000 apparently, if those numbers are accurate, 19,858, and I believe they are accurate, coming via Jason Powell there. That shows you there you go, yeah, you can almost get 20,000 in that in the O2. Saying that though, if AEW do, I suppose that could be our measuring stick. Will they do more or less? So what's the biggest number they did for Raw? So 14,816.
Yeah,
higher or lower for AEW? I think it's a universal higher, isn't it? Even if they're only at 12 now, I think they're going to pass that. The gate's going to be less than 3.5 million, though, is it? We know it's past 1 million. That's all we know right now. But the gate's going to be less. That's going to be the question, isn't it? What's more important, the gate or the bums on seats? I'd say bums on seats.
I'd say bums on seats. The TV deal makes up for it, and the pay-per-view revenue will make up for it. Because Forbidden Door is
TKO would say gate.
One of the biggest. They would do, because those fuckers care about nothing.
Any business would, in fairness.
Yeah. But I don't understand why fans would. I don't understand there's an argument.
Matty will. You'll find out. Matty will all of a sudden know all about it. He'll have a WrestleNomics subscription by the next time you speak to him.
You'll
be on WrestleTix on Patreon.
Football Dad Danny brought up about the gate. And I was like, oh my God, this argument. Like, I don't
Name drop
understand.
Brandon Thurston, see if he knows him.
I will drop that in there as well, actually. I'll say that he won't do. He'll just go, he likes AEW, don't he? And he'll just ignore him. But that's baked into the cake, I think, as well, in those trouble. Just, you have to hate AEW, and that's the way it is. And it makes no fucking sense to me in there as well.
And love Brandon Thurston or hate him, depending on whether he's saying nice things or horrible things about your chosen company at every given time. That's how you do a proper culture war. For more such culture wars, tune into our Saturday night's main event review. That's coming probably on Sunday. Exactly. But I'm not a nice finally, but I did include this. I did think it was of note.
Yes, you did. The majority of Americans are unsure if Vince McMahon's sexual assault allegations are true. They did polling on this.
That's a headline, isn't it?
It wasn't, yeah. I mean, that wasn't the one thing that they polled on. This is YouGov, who are like a very creditable pollster. I mean, if it's the YouGov I'm thinking of, the YouGov UK it's a British polling firm in there as well. They were talking. They basically asked for them, and I've got like the PDF up on here. It was like, the question was, as far as you know, are any sexual assault allegations against the following person true? And there was yes, no, and not sure. At the very top of the list, P. Diddy, Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly. But then it gets down to
Donald Trump, 51%.
Yeah, Donald Trump, 51%. 25 say no, and 25 aren't sure. 25% aren't sure in there as well. Vince McMahon, And I just think it's because of how much do they know about this, because you've got to think in terms of like the name, sort of like credibility and stuff like that kind of comes into the mix, and what people know about them. So there'll be a lot of people, for example, who don't know about like Andrew Tate or even Russell Brand, and Vince McMahon's fallen into that. So it's 24% say yes, 9% say no, 68% say they're unsure. But I just don't think they're aware of the allegations and they're aware of the case. I think that comes down to they don't really know about it, rather than they've seen it, they've read about it, they've tried to formulate an opinion, just don't think they know. I just don't think that the recognition...
Do you think it's the wrestling factor as well, though? That it's like that wrestling nonsense, so they don't take it seriously regardless. Like, they'll take a story like that very seriously when it comes to it. I suppose even in the entertainment industry, P. Diddy or like Jeffrey Epstein, or you'd think Trump, although I think the Trump number kind of tells you, you know, politically divided America is. Like, that's probably more the reason there than it not being taken seriously. I think it's just clearly not, it's a horrible thing to read, like, just not taken seriously. That it's that wrestling bloke and that passing interest kind of, they're the types of people that, you know, in the court of public opinion, the Vince McMahon side will be hoping for, won't it? That's just the override. That's why the battles for a lot of these stories are done in PR and done in the newspapers.
They are indeed. So, like, for example, Epstein is there because there is a name recognition of that story, but also they believe that he set it up for other people. That's why I think Bill Clinton polls very high, because he was hanging around with him and went to his island. Same thing with Prince Andrew, that you throw them into the mix. Later on, it becomes, I don't know. I don't really know about this person. I don't think about them in there as well. And Chris says it exactly there, right there in the chat. Needs a don't know who they are option. Like, that would be it. Just like, I don't know who this person is, so I don't really want to offer a subject about it. It's still a strange poll to kind of throw out there, but it's generally about, like, kind of, it's all, the poll itself.
It's interesting Vince was included, I suppose. Like, that's a positive, maybe. I don't know.
Conor McGregor fell below him as well, and it's just like, that's someone who has been, you know, has had an entire public court case, but that court case doesn't happen in the States. It happened in Ireland, and it may well have not reached major news outlets in the US.
He's never been found guilty. Well, actually, I mean, maybe not guilty, but liable. And you use whatever word you want, but it happened. Yeah, it did.
Exactly.
Awful.
Very, very
Can't
dark.
trust people.
No, you can't trust people.
Stuff. No. Well, on that note, obviously we'll move on from WWE in the murky world. Obviously, we'll be talking more on the end of the weekend show. I did slip and say Friday earlier with Simon doing cheers in the chat. We haven't actually had a conversation about that. We'll figure it out off air. It is an AEW pay-per-view weekend, but the pay-per-view's not till Sunday. I quite liked the Friday afternoon slot last week. Let's talk. We'll figure it out. But moving on from there, all the stuff that's going on, and we'll be going on there through the weekend. Got a bit of a, before we get into, I suppose, a bit of a dark side of the ring catch up, talk all things Japan. And I'm as confused as anyone. I don't understand what this means, JP. You've written in the notes here, Buster Super Juniors, all about the viral clips, and you've got in brackets tires, MMA, backflips, and arses.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the backflips bit. I don't know what the rest of it is. What's been going on? What have I missed?
So, one of the things that's been happening is Clark Connors has been coming out with a spare tyre, and Hiromu power-bombed him on the tyre. There seems to be a big push from New Japan to try and get some viral clips, and it was like, well, you needed to let people fucking share them, for one. That would have helped, rather than it has to officially come from you and from no one else. But I think they've been trying to do a bit more of a push on that, and trying to get interest in a tournament that, let's face it, very much gets lost into the shuffle, because it's how many people in there are like high profile draws and everything else. Because I have to admit, like, most of my following of this is, you know, I'll talk about it on the news dump, we'll talk about results on the weekend show, we'll see certain things. But I did see the clip of Hiromu power bombing onto it. It was a tire that was upright, by the way, so he's landing on the slightly bouncy bit. Just a weird thing to sort of take to ringside, but there you go. The MMA, I've
mostly been following it through Pollock's writing. Pollock's been saying like there's been some strong matches this year. I really need to catch up.
I want to see. I want to see. Is it Desperado versus Mao, who's coming from DDT? I think he used to tag with Mike Bailey in DDT in there, and I think just it's the novelty of having so many kind of outsiders that are thrown into the mix. The MMA bit was Kosei Fujita turning up like with no boots, like MMA shorts, and like so barefoot, as if he was going into an MMA fight. then Kushida took off his boots, and they had a bit of a grapple fuck session down on the floor. So it's like, well, all right, it's different, I suppose, and that's what they're going for, is to try and just add some difference into the mix and try and make this tournament sort of stand out of like, well, this is you're not going to get like a G1 here. You're going to get stuff that's a lot more wacky that's being thrown in there as well at the same time. The arses bit, and I did see some of this. So for almost the entire match, Ryusuke Taguchi had his arse out. He had and he wouldn't pull up his trunks. But the cameraman shot it in a way that the middle rope. Honestly, it's like Benny Hill never went away. Like, it's that kind of like level of humour that we're up to. They were, and how long has he been doing this shit for as well? It's incredible. He had like the cameraman was shooting it in a way so the middle rope was covering his arse, so you wouldn't see it while he was doing stuff there, and the commentators are screaming and telling him to pull up his trousers. And it was like, what the fuck is this? When I saw the clip, it was like, what? Like, this is like, honestly, you think of like the fucking lads who've competed in the best of the Super Juniors. We're all a long way away from Shingo versus Ospreay. We are like, there's another fucking dimension by comparison there as well. And that's what it seems to be kind of built on. That's what it's less about. Like, there are some strong matches that you'll hear about, some very good matches. Nothing that I've heard that is absolutely kind of like blow away, but it seems to be more about these kind of moments of novelty and wackiness that they've sort of thrown in there, which, could you look at it as desperation of New Japan just throwing shit up against the wall, going, we've got a tournament, we don't know how much interest is going to be, and even if we put on like loads of absolute killer matches, why don't we just go with this? I mean, I thought one of the more notable things was Kevin Knight beating Nick Wayne, which I did see that match, and that was very good. But I thought Kevin Knight would win because it made sense for him to win, because you go, well, he's losing to an AEW guy. That's a ready-made story then for the Ring of Honor TV title. You can do that on TV. You can show highlights from it. Not like AEW will do, but they should be doing
in a couple
that.
of weeks.
Yeah, maybe, exactly. When you want to get a fuller picture.
Probably will.
But Nick Wayne's been having a good tournament by the looks of it. I'm trying to think of who he beat. He beat Desperado as well. So
I did see that,
yeah. Like, he's having like a strong tournament. I think he's having a strong year. Like, he's a way off being the kind of like the massive big name in there. But yeah, that seems to be what the best of the Super Juniors is really at this stage. It's this kind of show.
Yeah.
Of the other stuff, a match I did see, and I don't know if you saw, it was our boy Ozawa. You know me, I like to jump onto a bandwagon. Noah are back, baby. Are they back? Well, they've got
been through this before.
Oh, we have. They've got a 22-year-old world champion who's got a fair bit of charisma, that sort of sleazy charisma that they like that we've seen played off to a lesser extent, like a Naito or whatever. Like, you just think, okay, this guy kind of has it and has the crowd connection, but because he's so young and he does a Phoenix Splash as his finisher, he's got like some really good moves to throw into the mix. Well, it's him and Kiyomiya, which was obviously Ozawa beat Kenta. Kiyomiya came out. He beat Kiyomiya for the title. And they had it at sold-out Kurikan, and it looked heaving. And while the match itself wasn't like the best match in the world, partly because there was a lot of running bollocks from the stables and stuff like that with Ozawa, it was more about the atmosphere. Like, Kota Kiyomiya was properly cheered. They said he's 24. It feels like he's been around forever. That can't be right. But apparently so.
I think that's right. He's like a Sean Waltman type. He's been around a while, but it was since he was a teenager, yeah.
And now he has to join Ozawa's stable because he's lost, which I think sets up where it's going to go, which is Kiyomiya ultimately turning heel, it being his stable. They kick Ozawa out, and Ozawa becomes the mega baby face that I think they're going to want to go with, because there was a particularly disgusting spot with a lollipop where Kiyomiya grabbed it off Yoshitatsu, put it in his mouth, and then stuck it in Ozawa's mouth. And it was like, that's germs, all the rest of it. Ozawa won in the end, but it was more, you had a proper 50-50 crowd, and it was sold out, and they did lots of and you could see it was sold out because they went up and did the brawling right to the back of where the orange seats are on the camera side. It was good. Like, and it's the thing that you've been hearing about Noah doing good, like, good shows, good attendances, like, and it's kind of through Ozawa, and they're just going with him. They're just going, right, this is our guy.
Get in on the ground floor type of situation. Yeah. I need to keep watching me Noah tapes before I'm over there in August. That'll be the hot ticket then.
Yeah, I think so. I think, and Kiyomiya he maybe found a rival of like a similar level of athleticism, and it appears to be the older lads, dare I say it, push somewhat to the undercard. Although Segura is in the neck, they're doing a 3-way with Segura, Endo, who left Zawa's stable and is teaming up with Segura, but they're doing a 3-way with them two and Zawa at like the next show. But it's all about him, and he's an interesting figure to keep an eye on. Like it's because it's just more that there is a genuine sense of charisma about him, and you think, okay, this guy kind of has something, and he's incredibly young, like 3 years wrestling, and he's outrageously good for that age, and outrageously
sounds like one of your boys,
kind of telegenic. Very much so. You know me. There's a bandwagon I want to jump on board, and I'm not the first one to jump on this bandwagon, obviously, but I'm still trying early doors to get in on it. Yeah.
Well, speaking of bandwagons, you were we early on elsewhere in Japan. Obviously, Champions Carnival's been going on, and Jun Saito is going to be defending the Triple Crown against his brother Rei Saito. Is that am I pronouncing that right, JP? Obviously, that's coming up June the 1st on AJPW.tv. I'm sure Garrett's got a subscription somewhere still for that one. Outside of that, Kento Miyahara and Yuma Aoyagi against Zeon and Shotaro Ashino is on that show. Seiki Yoshioka versus Dan Tamura is on that show as well as unfortunately Dave Boy Smith Jr. is a name I've just seen the run sheet for that show as well. But there you go. That's did you manage to catch any of the Champions Carnival before it ended?
Haven't managed to see the final. I do want to watch the final. I know he beat Hideki Suzuki in like 2 minutes, but I haven't managed to get my hands on seeing like the match where he beat Kento Miyahara. From what I've heard of it, it wasn't necessarily like the greatest match necessarily in the world. But the idea of doing brother versus brother for the Triple Crown, has that been done before? Like, really, the only kind of example I could ever think is if Terry Funk has won it, and maybe him and Dory Funk Jr. I don't even think that would have happened. That's just me throwing names out there. So that
you were big on these two early, though. I do remember.
Yeah, they had a look, and they were very rough around the edges, but they definitely had a look, and they've spent the requisite amount of time trying to kind of build them up. Like Jun Saito was very much, I thought he was the better one of the two. So I haven't seen Rei Saito in a little bit, but I'm very intrigued by it. Like, I think this is like definitely an interesting direction for them to kind of like go down. Like, you don't see this very often. Brother versus brother for a title. Most brother versus brother matches generally fucking terrible. This one,
me and our Peter had some good ones in Mum's bedroom when we were kids.
I was going to say, yeah, me and Pat had a few back in the day when we.
Who went over? You or Pat?
Pat, just through seniority. Yeah. Oh yeah, he was no way putting me over. It was when we stole the crash mat from the athletic stadium at the road, like top of the road. We took it. Like we land on if you did like sort of like pole vault and stuff. Brought it back, and we would jump doing moves off the shed onto that until my mum like fucking lost her shit basically about it. But I could do like kind of decent splashes and stuff. I was scared to do moonsaults in case it all went horribly fucking wrong. But it was it's the way everyone should be learning.
Last quick news story then before we catch up a little bit on Dark Side of the Ring.
Yep. On here there is a new name to the AAA creative team in there as well.
Probably could have been a WWE story, this, couldn't it? Basically,
it really is point, now.
It all is, isn't it?
It's Moody Jack Melendez there as well. He signed a contract with WWE. The other names who are on there already is Conan. We'll see how long that lasts. And Jeremy Borash in there as well. Borash there is a WWE representative. He's as knowledgeable on there as well. But Moody Jack Melendez, he commentator for TNA, the Spanish commentator, obviously there as well. Had helped. Had worked with AAA, had also worked in Puerto Rico for WWC and IWA Puerto Rico as well. So this deal's going to be set in the year. I think Borash is there as the kind of like opinion of common sense as much as anything else. Conan is there just because he's there at the moment. I wouldn't be optimistic for him staying around.
I'm glad Jeremy Borash is like still knocking around. Obviously, it's weird that he's in like Triple H's circle, that he became one of those guys. That's still a bit weird to kind of wrap your head around. But he's somebody who like he was just good at his job for long enough that like he just fell forwards, didn't he? Like he landed at NXT and then he started doing more of Triple H's production stuff, and now he seems like he's one of those people in that inner circle. Like Triple H relies on him for all kinds of weird and wonderful little projects. You always see his name popping out when it's like, oh, that was a good video on NXT. Who was involved? Oh, it was Jeremy Borash. Like he seems like a jack of all trades, and he's just learned everything and stuck around long enough that like we'll still be talking about him probably in 20 years having an important job in whatever wrestling company. He's just one of those survivors, isn't he? We'll see how long he survives in Triple A, especially with Conan breathing down his neck. But still cool. And we'll see how long Conan survives. I can't see him being long for this world in the WWE ecosystem.
He'll say something daft. He'll say something daft and say something offensive.
No, that's a guarantee. He has and will. And every week will say it. It's just a matter of someone hearing it. Someone just needs to listen to his podcast 1 week and go, oh, yeah, he's sacked. Like, that's all it's going to take.
And he'll lie. And he just tells these lies on his... He has to stop that podcast now. Yeah, exactly. In there. Maybe it'll be Jeremy Borash sending those messages now. Like, it'd just be like, are you doing a podcast, Jeremy? I'm not surprised. You do everything else in that fucking company. But I could see, like, Borash and Melendez sort of taking over. I think they've just gone for a couple of sensible people. And they've got Conan because he's like, all right, you're AAA, but he needs to keep his fucking nose clean.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, Dark Side of the Ring, we've been saying for the last couple of weeks. Obviously, there have been a couple of notable ones and newsworthy ones over the last couple of weeks. Billy Jack Haynes obviously being in the headlines. Wasn't capable of standing at his own trial, but was capable of appearing on Dark Side of the Ring via invite. Not via invite, via inviting himself as the voiceover. Thankfully, told you as if that made it better. I caught up with that this week. Caught up with the Sheik episode of last week, which is really eerie time. And didn't that happen when New Jack died? Wasn't there a New Jack one that was literally coming out that week? I'm sure the same thing happened. Weird Dark Side of the Ring curse, weird synergy there. But to see Sabu, on tape talking about his uncle, the Sheik, and being quite chatty for Sabu, although some of the stories weren't the most light-hearted, talking about like his dad coming up, his dad beating up the Sheik, or no, it was the other way around, wasn't it? It was the Sheik beating up his dad because his dad had been beating up his mum, and that made him fantasize about beating up his dad. And it was just like, Jesus, I hope some of this is aware because it's fucking horrendous. But filled in some colour on Sheik, kind of told the story we imagined, which was, he was a bit of a draw, a bit of an act, and needed a way to continue being it, and just grabbed onto whatever he could, which was one, his nephew, and two, was a little bit of the old ultra violence, as kind of how the Sheik story kind of went. But yeah, for a basic show, I enjoyed that. I thought they were a couple of good entries, JP, of an overall okay season, if it isn't maybe running out of material there just a bit as Dark Side of the Ring.
That's it. My big overall thought on this season so far is how many of these have they got in them? You might be stretching it with one more, two more would definitely be stretching it. I know it does consistent ratings for them, and it's a brand.
Just do a fucking season on Vince, you cowards. Go out in a blaze of glory.
That's it. That's really what you need to do. It's just all the multiple Vince stories each week, like Vince, that you could just get into for all of that. I have to say, and it's probably recency bias, I really liked the Sheik episode because it was like a proper historical episode that obviously, because of the timing, had a lot of the Sabu stuff, who's actually having his own documentary being made about him. I think there was a trailer released for that today.
I saw that, yeah. I thought that was weird, yeah.
Yeah, very.
Is that these, or is it independent?
No, I think it's just an independent.
Oh,
so
I thought so. Yeah.
The quality could massively vary. God knows how good that's going to end up being. But the Sheik one I found really interesting in that it's a simple enough story. Like it follows like him. He's not a character that obviously pre the Sabu stuff that always knew who he was, but didn't know a lot necessarily about him. And it goes into the promotional side. It goes into the kind of historical elements with big time wrestling in Detroit, explaining about like how protective he was over his character. This is really where Jim Cornette shines, is doing these sorts of Dark Side of the Rings. That's when he's at his best as a talking head. And you've got Sabu there as well. Rob Van Dam talking about training him and everything else, and about like grabbing his throat, and he showed the stuff from Halloween.
He's telling that story at the Hall of Fame, wasn't he? I'd forgotten he did that. I'd forgotten he inducted them with Sabu weirdly kind of stood off to the side while Van Dam did most of the talking.
Yeah, because he said he didn't really like talking for that long, and it's like I've watched many shoot interviews with Sabu, he's all right talking, and he's actually very captivating while he does it. He just decided never to do it in the ring.
Charisma translates, doesn't it, whether you talk or not?
It showed the Halloween Havoc match where like he broke his leg because Sabu does the springboard like moonsault to the outside onto Jerry Lynn, and then hits the Sheik as well. Sheik throwing in the fireball and stuff, like getting up and carrying on, and the career and the stuff with the family was nice. Like him turning up to like the second grades. I'm assuming that they're like sort of like 5 or 6 or whatever. Don't know how it works in the States. Showing up second grade kind of like ceremonies for his grandkids and stuff, and all the other on a grandparents' day, and all the other grandparents just getting like his autograph and stuff like that. But I actually thought it was quite nice of like a life that was very full, and
absolutely
someone who kind of succeeded. There's a really rough patch where it's like to say he's living in his kitchen, but I thought that episode was pretty good. The Billy Jack Haynes one, the problem I had with that, and I don't know if you felt the same way, is you just don't believe he's the most unreliable narrator in the world.
But that's the thing, the documentary spends half an hour telling you that, and it's Jim Cornette and whoever else going, some wrestlers lie, but he fucking really lies, and he said that he was responsible for murders and all kinds, didn't he? And it's just like, but I mean, it undercuts the documentary existing in the first place, because so why? Like, surely you'd realise how bad you all look by having him sit there and talk to you guys. Like, it's just, maybe it's just because the stories come out since, although at the same time that he was on trial, he was in prison at the time of it. Like, it was tasteless at the start, and it ended up even more tasteless for me. I wasn't a fan of that one, to be honest. I found that one a tough watch. It wasn't entertaining even in a perverse way. That one just felt, I don't know, if you believe that like he's genuinely got mental problems, and that's what's resulted in the death of his wife, who by accounts he massively loved, and hopefully I don't know if it's a happy way of putting it, but that it is those issues that have caused it. Just not a happy thing to see, is it? It's not a nice thing to watch. It's just it's just awful, really, and it's just just not a nice. I suppose it's Dark Side of the Ring, so it is what it is. But when it's an active case like that, I don't know, something about it felt icky.
Feels kind of unpleasant as much as anything else, having him like involved in it. If he'd appeared in the last 10 minutes and gone, well, this is what Billy Jack Haynes said to us, and then there was this maybe from just a structural point of view, I might have gone along a bit more with that. But that isn't what they did.
Was he someone you were ever a fan of, like back in the day?
No, I remember him from WrestleMania 3, and I remember him being like this massive look. And then
cousin John told me that he was Randy Savage and the Genius's other brother, and I believed it because he looked like.
Yeah, I could easily have believed that back in the day when you'd believe all manner.
That's my only memory, really. Yeah, he was a name on the cards.
That was it. And then he disappeared forever. And then there was a shoot interview that was sold on the idea of, Billy Jack Haynes has got all these shocking stuff. I'll have a look at this. And I just remember watching it just going, he's fucking mad. Like, he's just mad, and he's just lying. And it's just like, why am I watching this? It's like 2 hours. I'm never getting back. I'm just a man making up shit.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of those talking heads go, and he just lied. It's like, you there was like, what are you on about? Jim Cornette? Like, there's a lot of those talking heads who are like, glass houses, lads.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And it's a shame, because in some ways, some of the other episodes earlier on in the season, after a bad start with the Hell in the Cell one, which was completely needless and just done because we can get Mick Foley on this show.
That put me off this season, to be honest. It made me less enthused about watching.
I think the structure of it was just like that wasn't the one to go with. There's been some other ones that I think have been a lot more interesting, and a lot more interesting because it fills in gaps for me. Let's say Eddie Gilbert. Like, I think that one is just genuinely a really, like, he's a fascinating, I know for Matty, like, that would have been
sit down and watch that, we could do a show. We should do a show.
Yeah, I think so.
Marty
I think,
can lead it.
Even ranking these episodes.
That could be his, his special subject on, I was going to say MasterChef then. What am I thinking of?
I don't know how well that'd go down with John Turode. Like, him like, sort of like wheeling out a load of stuff. Who's Eddie Gilbert? Like, what about this souffle? Sort it out, Matty. Right, yeah, forgotten. But I thought like that the Eddie Gilbert one was interesting, even if it does follow. Like, I mean, there's always a pattern to these. It's called Dark, like you say, it's called Dark Side of the Ring for a reason. Ends up with like heavy drug abuse stuff. I thought the Tony Atlas one I thought that was really good as well. Partly just because of Tony Atlas's. See, as opposed to Billy Jack Haynes, you kind of believe Tony Atlas because it just feels like he's got like no reason to tell a lot of lies about stuff, and there's a degree of like sort of bluntness and honesty to him. Even when he's talking about the whole foot thing and he's explaining it, and he just go, he likes feet. Like, and that's what Ricky Steamboat says. He just goes, he likes feet, and he's just like sort of shrugs his shoulders, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty much that. But just the story of being like in terms of dealing with racism and wrestling.
Well, the dregs, aren't we? The
dregs.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I know there's a serious edge to that, but like, still, like, we're spending episodes on Tony Atlas's foot fetish. Maybe it's time to call it a day.
In fairness, have you seen that one? Because in fairness, that's not the big.
Yeah, we talked about it at the time.
Oh, we did we? The Vader one was really interesting. Like, I mean, even if it's stuff that we already knew, it's like Ludwig Borger. He's horrible. He's a horrible person, but I didn't know much about him. Yeah. Other than I remember him turning up in Die Hard with a Vengeance and going, Tony Halme, that's a name I know. He's playing one of the coppers when he's who gets handed the bomb back or whatever it is from Samuel L. Jackson's character in there. So you're right. Overall, we are at the dregs. I mean, the last two on here, I don't know how you feel like tonight. We've got Daphne. I know there's a lot of people who,
watch that happen in real time, like on social. There's a social media one, like on the night.
Yeah.
It was just, But again, it is that is the show,
That's, and then Muhammad Hassan at number 10, which kind of like
won't be best than our deep cut.
No, it won't be better than our deep cut, like good old Bobby Brocky. But this one,
what a man,
like,
we miss him.
Because it's going to be Mark Capani being interviewed for it, you'd imagine. You imagine that he's not planning on coming back into wrestling. So he's got no like real vested interest in it. And I think, okay, that's one almost I'd want you to start off the season with. I just wish it just started off on a bad note. Then it became Tony Halme, and it was like, this feels like it's the dregs. And then there's a couple of highs, but for the most part, it's either stories that you're very familiar with. But yeah, where does it go from here? Outside of a Vince season.
Yeah, there you go. That's the only way, I think. And whether they're brave enough, we will find out. But there you go. That's our little catch up. I'm sure we'll be talking there those final 2 episodes, JP. But yeah, and finally, story of the night, and it's a doozy.
Oh, so we haven't mentioned the old Hulkster. His Real American Beer brand is interested in purchasing Hooters. Yeah. So this is a company that WWE now has a minority stake in there as well. He's interested in purchasing Hooters. I don't know if that's a euphemism for what Terry likes. I could imagine that being the case in there as well. They're planning to submit a bid because obviously Hooters of America filed for bankruptcy in March this year. They're looking to submit a bid for the IP of it, which is the food, merchandise, drink for here as well on Hooters. In there as well at the same time.
Not paying $1.
No.
For Business Insider. They can fuck off.
No fucking.
I'll stick with me Cultaholic copy and paste.
When are you going to read Business Insider just quietly aside, like for that in there as well?
It's like one of those ones though, isn't it? Steph subscribed. I can't remember what it was, but there's one Steph subscribed to where it's something like that. It's $1 and it's harder to cancel than it is to just accept that you're going to lose the $1 every month. You're just like, you know what? I'm not ringing an American helpline. It's like a Podo Prime. I'm a member of that for because I booked a hotel once. I'm just going to hope my card cancels it on its own next year when it tries to renew. What can you do?
Yeah, okay.
Hollywood Hulk Hooters, Andy Ogden says here.
I found out I was paying for Uber Eats not that long ago. I was like, what the fuck has that happened?
I had 2 accounts running, mate. And based on the emails I'm getting from them since I've moved abroad, they miss me.
Yeah, they'll fuck them off. I'll tell you this, guys. I went to Just Eat the other day. Yeah, I got £8 off pizzas the other day. So I was like, nice. In fairness, that was not.
I mean, my pizza on Grab from Pizza Hut was £4.50 the other day, delivered large. But sorry, mate. I live in God's country.
You really do live in God's country. The food you pay is just the prices you pay for your food is out fucking
66p breakfast for him. It was fantastic, lovely omelette.
Oh dear. But this is the thing. Will it work for them as well? Like they may be doing restaurants as well.
Sounds like bollocks.
I don't know.
Sounds like Hogan bollocks.
It does sound like Hogan bollocks. Yeah, in there as well. He's not setting up a fucking restaurant chain. If so, he's again not putting in a single.
Can he do a tour of the Hooters? When on Matty's stag do in Nottingham, we went to the Nottingham Hooters because of course we did, and it was the day Forest were playing, I think City. Chris Wood turned up into the Hooters, got harassed by City fans. It was a fun time. It was a good day. Maybe Hogan would get the same treatment if he turned up at the Nottingham Hooters.
I think he probably would. I'm assuming that Real American beer tastes like piss as well. So like that'd be fucking awful. Like
Platt spent 6 months playing for Uber Eats America. Yeah, that's why I've got 2 Uber Eats accounts. Well, that and I like discount codes, but yeah, I've had that problem.
Sneaky motherfuckers, aren't they? They really are on there. So
just like cancel.
Yeah, exactly. The big lesson from this story is just check your bank statements for what inexplicable thing you're paying for. Got charged for Amazon Music. I've never used it once. I was like. And I'm pretty sure it was one of the sons who'd ordered that. And I was like, which one of you fuckers did this? Oh, $10.99.
Cancelled all mine before we made. Netflix is all I've got, and that's going soon because I can't use it anyway while I'm out here. £1 a month for WrestleNomics. That comes out the grapple money though, so that's pretty much my only sub I've got left at the minute. Right. I cancelled everything, and I thought I'd start again as and when I need stuff. And it's turned out I don't need stuff. Adobe, that's one I need for the podcast. Unfortunately, those fuckers are going to make me pay. So outside of that though, I'm doing good. But there you go. There's our last story, and that's the end of the show. Unless there's more for you to mention, JP. Obviously, it's going to be a busier weekend next weekend with Saturday night's main event, and obviously Double or Nothing will be doing the full preview on the weekend show. Early Thursday or early Friday? Are you thinking early Friday, JP? Should we say it? Hash it out on air?
I'm thinking early Friday. I'm thinking early Friday. I liked early Friday for that. And I liked it for people just basically, we're giving our listeners a chance to, and watchers, a chance to just have a cheeky DOS from work. It's the last 2 hours. No one cares. Exactly.
All the Everton podcasts to listen to, they're live at like 1 in the afternoon, you know? The Wrestle Culture. I was going to say Wrestle Culture then. Steph calls them the What Culture lads. They're live at like 2 in the afternoon. Feels prime time in the UK, surely.
Exactly.
I wouldn't do it if I was in the UK because I wouldn't get out of bed, but still, you know. Now that I'm over here 6 hours later, I'll demand these such things.
Gives you an evening. Gives me an evening. It all
gives my neighbours a night off.
Yeah, exactly. It ticks so many boxes.
I'll be in Da Nang next week. It'll be fine. I'll mention this on Sunday, but literally the Airbnb I booked in Da Nang, so I'm leaving in just less than 2 weeks now. When I go, I'll literally might be the only person who's gone on Airbnb looking for the keywords of like soundproof and noisy area. And I've found like this amazing apartment that's in like, apparently it's the party street where there's like karaoke going on till 4 a.m. But all the reviews say the soundproofing is world class and you can barely hear the karaoke. So if they can barely hear the karaoke, they'll barely hear me shouting at Matty about Jay. So I think we'll be win-win. And I think that might be my go-to from now on whenever I book anywhere, somewhere that's noisy but soundproof. Based on the reviews, so that's the plan.
Rock solid, mate. Honestly, rock solid. No one can complain.
And then I can go to karaoke when we're done. You know, rock down 2 a.m, sing a couple of tunes, sorted.
Although if we're going early, be able to go there at 9 o'clock or something. You'll have a fucking great time, won't you? I don't mind. It works, and it keeps Simon happy as well. I think he enjoys a bit of that. So we're giving him a bit of fan service as well at the same time.
Well, there you go. Plenty coming up, obviously, at weekend show. Obviously, no live bonus show this weekend with Brett Joe dropping. And we'll be doing the next live bonus show on the NXT show next weekend. But like I say, in its place, we will have Brett Joe, and we will also have, hopefully, 2 versions of Spotlight, I think, with a Double or Nothing review as well as something with me and Matty looking at Saturday night's main event as well.
Battleground as well, yeah.
Get lost. You can do that. That's your show, mate. You and Matty can do it together. Wave your little NXT flags. I'll stand here.
I really wish I hadn't said that.
Sorry, how's Ricky Starks doing? Freudian slip. Not well, I think is the answer. But there we go.
Gareth was right. Let's just say that. We just throw that.
Usually he was in the end.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to take your medicine with Gareth, and he plays the long game. That's what he does. I respect him for it. But there we go. Plenty coming up. Like I say, we'll be doing our 4th May show the week after for the Queen of the Mountain show with Sophia Hitchcock looking at the 4 horsewomen. So got that to look forward to. And then it'll be June, and who knows what will be coming up in June. Something rhyming with Jay. I'm sure Matty will come up with something. But yeah, obviously, in all seriousness, thank you to the patrons with us tonight. We did put this out to all patrons. Obviously, hopefully we've boosted the mood a little bit. Thank you to our live patrons for tuning in with us today. Once again, obviously, very, very, very sad couple of days, obviously, with the if people missed it at the top, with the sad passing of Dylan Shah, patron and former King of the Mountain. Obviously, we did give that show a listen. I'll put it up for free before the weekend for people to check out who won to the XWF show we did with them. But I'm sure his family will appreciate if anybody, has got kind words to say or any condolences. Dills Forever, DILZ.forever82@gmail.com as family have asked for. So do send that over there. And of course, like we keep saying, thoughts with, the people who knew him best, the likes of Ewan and Andy Ogden, Andrew Carberry, and people like that, and pretty much everybody who bumped into him will know him well. So yeah, we'll miss him, and obviously a big part of our community. So yeah, been a very sad couple of days.
Very sad couple of days. Rest in peace, Dylan. You're an absolutely lovely bloke. Very much loved, much cared for in this community, and honestly, a lovely, lovely, lovely bloke.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely couldn't say it better myself. But yeah, as always, thank you, patrons. Thank you, live patrons. Thank you to our kings and Queen of the Mountain. Thank you to Conor Laughlin, Eddie Sarburns, Chris Blatt, Carl Gack, Sophia Hitchcock, and Sam Mulvaney. And also for Dylan Shaw. We will catch you again on the next one. Good night, all.
Bye.